Yes, I understand. I will report immediately. Half a month later, at the training grounds of Jekka Group's steel camp, Miao Luan hung up the phone and strolled onto the drill field, bellowing loudly. Assemble! In an instant, the first-class super soldiers who were training there rapidly converged, lining up neatly in front of Miao Luan. Each of them exuded a fierce presence, along with a formidable aura. Miao Luan looked around the group before saying, "We've received orders from above. We need to conduct a human enhancement experiment similar to the one to become a first-class super soldier. Those willing to participate, step forward." Whoosh! The moment Miao Luan's words ended, the 100 or so soldiers of the steel camp stepped forward in unison, with none choosing to remain in place. To become the Jekka Group's ace super soldiers, these steel camp soldiers were among the most loyal to the Jekka Group. From volunteering to become super soldiers to joining the steel camp, there were many checkpoints along the way, one of which required proving their loyalty. Moreover, they had already participated in related biological experiments. Symbiotic poisonous insects still lay dormant in the hearts of every soldier's body. When these symbiotic insects were first integrated, there was a half-month period of rejection during which nearly every soldier endured daily torment. If it weren't for their unwavering loyalty to the Jekka Group, they wouldn't have signed up voluntarily. Of course, after the half-month adaptation period, the symbiotic poisonous insects also provided them with physical prowess far beyond that of ordinary soldiers, making them the strongest special forces in the history of Blue Star humans, with physical qualities surpassing those of champions in all areas of athletics. "Very well. Pack your gear and come with me to meet General Su." Miao Luan nodded. The soldiers quickly got ready, each carrying 2 large iron boxes containing their battle armor and weapons, and then boarded the armored personnel carriers. In a large bioexperimental lab, security was tight, with guard posts every 5 steps and sentries every 10 steps. Patrols of soldiers with military dogs and placements of heavy weapons made the atmosphere so strict that it could chill the timid. However, this was hardly a concern for the steel camp soldiers who had been through countless brutal battles and whose hands were stained with blood. "Camp Commander Miao, it's a pleasure to meet you. I am Wu Guosuo, the Deputy Head of Research and Development at Jekka Group," said a man in a white lab coat who appeared quite amiable as he welcomed Miao Luan and his entourage. "Good to meet you, Supervisor Wu." The two shook hands and greeted each other. Jekka Security and the Jekka Group weren't traditionally in a superior-subordinate relationship. Even though the military funding of Jekka Security all came from the group, these ordinary executives of the group had no authority to command security department soldiers. The steel camp was even more special, taking orders only from Su Jie himself, with any deployment requiring his personal consent. "Please come with me, Camp Commander Miao. I'll take you through a decontamination process and some prep work first." Wu Guosuo led the group of super soldiers into the laboratory compound and started briefing them. "For the next month, after undergoing the enhancement, you'll need to live here for adaptation and observation. If any problems arise with your bodies, we can deal with them promptly, as we have the most professional equipment and doctors." Each super soldier went through a rigorous decontamination process, changed into loose-fitting clothing, and with the help of nurses, completed the preliminary medical checkups to receive reports on their physical conditions. Miao Luan stood by the laboratory window, chatting idly with Wu Guosuo. Through their conversation, Miao Luan learned that Wu Guosuo had studied abroad when he was young, worked in well-known medical institutions, returned to Chan country to become one of the few high-end medical researchers, and eventually joined the Jekka Group. People like Wu Guosuo were not uncommon in the Jekka Group. With benefits superior even to those of a Fortune 500 company, working here was very comfortable, provided no betrayal occurred. The fate of those who did betray the Jekka Group or who infiltrated as spies needed no explanation. There were always a few people every month who would be taken away to be used for target practice. "What are those people doing?" While they were talking, Miao Luan suddenly pointed. Following the direction of his finger, a few container trucks could be seen driving in. Armed soldiers escorted a group of men and women, dressed in prisoner attire with hoods over their heads, down and into a nearby building. "Those are experimental consumables," Wu Guosuo replied calmly, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Consumables. Since it's a human-related enhancement experiment, To ensure no mistakes, we've conducted several clinical trials in advance to find a safe and suitable modification plan. Of course, don't mind it, Camp Commander Miao. These people are death row inmates taken from prisons. As you know, in the recent new regime of G-State, many capitalists and former officials who didn't comply with us and profited from the crisis were purged by the group's forces. Others are thugs who caused havoc during the chaos of the war. They have provided valuable data during clinical trials, which you could say is the last bit of value in their lives. Miao Luan nodded. He was aware of the Jeka Group's severe treatment of corrupt officials within its ranks. He himself had participated in similar capture operations and had no sympathy for those scoundrels. Several hours later, Miao Luan, the commander of Steel Camp, was the first to be called in for the transformation experiment. The experimental site was not on the ground, but inside a mountain structure similar to a nuclear defense facility, ensuring absolute safety of the experiments and protecting them from enemy attacks and destruction. In a dust-free, sterile operating room, Miao Luan met several doctors, including Wu Guosua and his direct superior. "Hello, General Su." Miao Luan instinctively stood at attention and saluted. Miao Luan, are you feeling nervous now?" Su Jie nodded at Miao Luan while wearing medical gloves. "No, I trust General Su." Miao Luan shook his head, his eyes determined. He. Don't worry, the transformation is very safe. We have conducted numerous experiments already. Su Jie waved his hand and a doctor handed him an album that contained various insect illustrations and their descriptions. In the album, Miao Luan saw ants, venomous snakes, dragonflies, bats, beetles, and more, but they were different from the insects he knew. Their appearances varied significantly. "These are newly bred after hybridization." Su Jie offered a reason, but in reality, these insects were native to Tianyuan. Su Jie originally planned to extract the genes of the blue star's poison insects, but he found their genes too fragile. Upon entering and strengthening the human body, they often cause collapse due to various rejections, so Su Jie chose these poison insects from Tianyuan world instead. This experiment is about enhancing a certain specialized ability of the poison insect in your body. You can understand it as genetic modification, allowing you to have the powerful characteristic abilities of insects. According to your physical health report, you can be enhanced with the abilities of 3 different poison insects. These are the combinations of abilities we recommend for you, which also had the highest compatibility with you in the blood tests. You make the choice. I choose this one. After some contemplation, Miao Luan finally chose the long spear demon beetle, wind feather jumping worm, and purple light bat. Are you sure? Yes, I am sure. After a brief reply, Miao Luan lay down on the operating table, his upper garment removed. Several doctors fastened Miao Luan's hands and feet with steel hoops and attached electrodes all over his body, monitoring the data on the supervisory instruments. You are going to endure severe pain, as it is not suitable to administer anesthetics during the transformation process. Su Jie stood in front of Miao Luan. "General, I will not let you down." Miao Luan's expression remained unchanged. Being the commander of Steel Camp, he certainly had extraordinary courage. "Endure it." Su Jie nodded, picked up 3 glass bottles with solutions of different colors inside. These were the poison insect genes extracted by Su Jie using the Insect Transformation Manual, mixed with the spiritual power emanating from within the spirit stones, creating a special solvent which Su Jie called the Gene Potion. The solutions from the 3 vials were drawn out and injected into the body through syringes. Because he wasn't a cultivator, Su Jie could only carry out the transformation in this way. As the needle pierced his skin, a chilly sensation spread through his skin. Miao Luan could feel a mysterious power in the gene potion that seemed to be taking root and sprouting silently within his body. A slight sensation of warmth followed, as if his entire body was gradually being activated, his muscles starting to tremble slightly. Then, a strong urge for life began to surge within him, his heartbeat intensifying immeasurably, that warm, mysterious power permeating every cell. A minute later, as the gene potion was fully injected, Miao Luan's body began to undergo drastic changes. His skin turned red and hot as if he were a cooked shrimp. His body temperature began to skyrocket wildly. Miao Luan initially still clenched his teeth, not uttering a sound, even as veins began to bulge on his neck. But later, the pain became more and more intense, as if countless poison insects were gnawing at his body. Miao Luan, the tough man, began to growl lowly. His muscles started to surge wildly, undergoing even more astonishing transformations. His body kept enlarging. His blood vessels and muscles were like dragons roaming on the surface of his body. Roar! Miao Luan roared in pain, his voice like an enraged brown bear. The iron hoops restraining his limbs cracked, and finally, Miao Luan broke free. Several doctors watched this astounding scene, shocked to the point that their glasses shattered on the floor. In the past, ordinary people involved in experiments could only bear the injection of one type of gene potion, and the amount of gene potion injected was only 1/3 or half a tube, with far less intense changes. They certainly couldn't break solid iron hoops. General, be careful. Fearing Miao Luan might harm Su Jie, a few doctors wanted to take Su Jie away from there. It doesn't matter. But Su Jie waved his hand and quietly watched Miao Luan. Miao Luan had not lost his sanity. It was just the intense changes in his body that made him instinctively want to move around, to vent that burning and itchy pain inside. And in Miao Luan's heart, where the symbiotic poisonous insect was parasitic, sensing the danger its host faced, it had already injected sugar and adrenaline into the body, providing Miao Luan with more emergency energy. Gradually, the roaring sound from Miao Luan became lower. He was slowly adapting to the changes in his body. A bizarre scene occurred. On the surface of Miao Luan's body, layers of a peculiar gel-like substance secreted and proliferated, rapidly solidifying into an exoskeleton like that of insects. His ears enlarged and widened. His leg muscles were so thick that they seemed ready to burst, and on his forehead, 2 long spear-like horns shot up into the sky. At this moment, Miao Luan looked nothing like a human being and resembled a demon from hell, with horns on his head and armor all over his body, standing over 2 meters tall and weighing more than 300 kilograms, exuding an aura that made people tremble. Gurgle. The doctors, sensing an aura like that of a natural predator, began to retreat in panic. General! General! Miao Luan's voice was a bit hoarse. He was not used to the changes in his body. Take a look at your new form. Su Jie pushed over a full-length mirror for Miao Luan to see the changes in himself. When Miao Luan saw his own form in the mirror, he was somewhat stunned. He had originally thought that this transformation would be similar to the symbiotic poisonous insect, but he did not expect such substantial physical changes. Seeing Miao Luan's expression, Su Jie chuckled and asked, "Regret it?" "Not at all. I am willing to die for Jekka Group," Miao Luan said loudly. However, at the end, he scratched his head with a bit of regret. "My only slight regret is that I didn't get married sooner. With this form, I'll certainly be rejected." "So that's what you're worried about." Su Jie smiled and said, "I forgot to tell you, your form can be changed. Insects can molt their exoskeleton, and you can shed this outer exoskeleton and horns too." Upon hearing this, Miao Luan felt a weight lifted off his shoulders. Trying to sense his body, the piece of exoskeleton on his hand suddenly turned into a gel-like substance and flowed down to the ground, revealing the normal skin and flesh underneath. Wanting to experiment more, he found that he couldn't control his body well. Some parts could shed while others couldn't. "You'll have to slowly master this body's proficiency in the future. Then you'll be able to change your form at will. But for now, don't rush to shed your exoskeleton. Come with me to test this body's data and see how much stronger you've become." Su Jie patted Miao Luan's chest and stood up to leave the operating room. Miao Luan followed behind. Along the way, Miao Luan's exaggerated and ferocious form attracted countless stares. In a testing ground, there was a specialized track for testing, a barbell for testing strength, and various weapons testing ranges. With several staff members recording, Miao Luan began his first test after taking the gene potion. He grabbed a barbell weighing 500 kilograms with one hand, which didn't put much pressure on him. Eventually, the weight was increased to 2 tons, and Miao Luan could still lift it over his head, which was the weight of a small car. In terms of defense, Miao Luan's performance was equally outstanding. He could easily fend off direct shots from a 12.7mm heavy machine gun with that exoskeleton made of chitin and ignored sniper rifle shots. Only large-caliber machine guns posed a threat to him. The staff responsible for recording test data were left dumbfounded as they witnessed Miao Luan's almost monstrous strength and physical defense, feeling as if their entire worldview had been reshaped. This is the capacity of the long spear demon beetle, strength enhancement, and exoskeleton defense. Miao Luan, go try out your speed. Su Jie commented, noting that both strength and defense were quite apparent. Okay. Miao Luan moved to the front of the track, gently warmed up his well-developed, thick legs, muscles rippling with raw explosive power. As the staff member uttered the word, start, its trailing sound still hung in the air when Miao Luan already sped off like a gust of wind, leaving 2 dark streaks on the plastic track from the friction. He ran 10 laps around the standard 400-meter track without stopping for breath. The staff member at the finish line felt like he was watching a peregrine falcon swooping low over the field. Every time Miao Luan flashed past, the gust of wind he generated would mess up his hair. When the run was complete and after the high-speed cameras and speedometers completed their calculations, the timekeeper announced that Miao Luan maintained a speed between 145 and 150 kilometers per hour, with top speeds reaching up to 180 kilometers per hour. The fastest land animal on Blue Star, the cheetah, peaks at a speed of 120 kilometers per hour but doesn't have the same stamina as Miao Luan. As for the fastest human athletes, even the 100-meter dash, when converted to an hourly speed, is just around 40-some kilometers per hour. At such speeds, let alone running, even driving on a highway at this high velocity wouldn't be permitted. In short, the staff nearby were all in disarray, feeling as if they were witnessing a legend. Not bad at all. The abilities of the wind feather jumping worm are also well realized here. This agility and neurological reaction speed have improved significantly. Lastly, let's check out the ability of the purple light bat. Su Jie tossed over a rifle and a piece of cloth, leading Miao Luan to the shooting range. In the field, there were many moving targets, along with chickens and ducks scurrying all around. Miao Luan blindfolded himself, picked up the rifle, and in complete blindness he fired, hitting every moving target and also killing those unfortunate chickens and ducks in one shot. Looks like the staff will have extra food today. While Miao Luan was shooting, his broad ears twitched sharply, and his throat muscles moved slightly, emitting inaudible low-frequency sound waves, receiving all external information. The purple light bat is a type of poisonous insect in the Tianyuan world, possessing a formidable biological radar ability that allows it to locate itself by emitting ultrasonic waves. These waves bounce back after encountering any obstacle, and the echoes contain information about previously encountered objects, which it uses to construct a picture of the external world. Beyond this, the bat also possesses a geomagnetic sense and polarization vision, essentially acting as a walking compass, able to sense the position of the sun in the sky even on overcast days or at night, much like an internal GPS system. Polarization vision enables the purple light bat to detect hidden light or images, providing an edge in hunting. Simply put, Miao Luan had become a biological radar. Even without sight, he could easily lock onto the enemy's position. His eyesight was similarly greatly enhanced, and polarization vision allowed him to look directly into the midday sun without being dazzled. That's why Miao Luan could shoot with unerring accuracy without using his eyes. His plethora of senses provided too much information. Once Miao Luan emptied several magazines, the staff went to check and then loudly declared, 90 shots fired, 88 hit their mark. The nearby staff tasked with recording the data applauded in unison, their faces filled with excitement. With such potent biochemical soldiers, what fate would await ordinary soldiers who faced them? Miao Luan removed the black cloth blindfolding his eyes. Despite the workout, he barely seemed out of breath, indicative of his excellent physical condition. General Su, have I succeeded? Miao Luan himself found it incredible. In his current state, he felt significantly more robust than when he had previously taken the strengthening pill. Su Jie nodded with satisfaction, saying, a resounding success. With further training, you can still enhance some aspects. The body gets stronger the more you exercise it, so don't slack off now because of your current strength. Yes, General Su. I, Miao Luan, and all of Steel Camp won't slack off even a bit. Finally, Miao Luan relaxed, fearing he would waste Su Jie's efforts. As the gene potion he had been given was clearly not cheap, Miao Luan wasn't wrong in his thinking. The graft of the Insect Transformation Manual did require spirit stones, and a continuous investment of them. General Su, I feel like I don't need to take strengthening pills anymore. Miao Luan clenched his fist, his physical attributes even more potent than those conferred by the strengthening pill, and he felt an itch to destroy something. Even if you wanted to take them, it would be useless. Strengthening pills will have no effect on your body anymore. Su Jie smiled and warned, aside from training and combat, come back to the base once every 2 or 3 months to soak in a nutrient pod. Otherwise, your abilities will diminish. The nutrient pod is where Su Jie liquefied spirit stones and diluted them. Su Jie would regularly add to the pod to ensure the combat effectiveness of these genetic warriors. Miao Luan, starting today, you are responsible for recruiting more genetic warriors. If there are suitable talents in the army, you can select them and start their preliminary training. Once they are suitable, transform them into genetic warriors. Henceforth, Steel Camp will no longer reserve super soldiers, but will disseminate them across units, becoming their spearhead assault force. Su Jie issued the stern new order. Though genetic warriors were powerful, the grafting process was costly in terms of spirit stones, so it was indeed necessary to select the best of the best. Moreover, super soldiers had a good cost-performance ratio. Su Jie used to wholesale strengthening pills by the tens of thousands from Ghost Ridge Palace, so they would still be retained but dispatched to ordinary troops instead. In the future, Steel Camp would only conserve genetic warriors, who, compared to super soldiers, had greater fighting power, more diverse skills and abilities, and were better suited for special combat training systems. Yes, mission guaranteed to be accomplished. Miao Luan was somewhat excited. Just the thought of leading a team of genetically modified warriors into battle made his blood boil with enthusiasm. Go and carry out the adaptation and coordination. Remember to communicate with the engineering department. Have them create weapons and new battle armor that are suited to your genetic modifications. After issuing his final instructions, Su Jie turned and left to perform another genetic warrior modification surgery. Time slipped by quietly, and one by one, the soldiers waiting here from the Steel Camp were transformed. Some had a lower genetic compatibility and could mostly only inherit 2 insect abilities, but outstanding individuals like Miao Luan inherited the abilities of 3 insects. Su Jie didn't interfere much with this. The more insect abilities a genetic warrior inherited, the more expenses for the transformation and the subsequent spirit stone supplements. Su Jie had to consider his own wallet. 10 days flashed by in the blink of an eye. Within this large experimental base, Miao Luan had seen the creation of hundreds of genetic warriors like him. They trained together, lived together, ate together, adapting to the various changes in their bodies after the modifications. Meanwhile, Su Jie had already returned to Tianyuan World, because he too had important matters to attend to. When did he leave? In Su Jie's residence, Su Jie asked Ning Xinyue, who was in front of him. The night before last, the Heavenly Soul Sect left together. You're really going to take action, huh? Ning Xinyue lounged comfortably in a deck chair, rocking back and forth, enjoying the desserts and fruits served by Su Jie's maid. They think they can offend me and then just walk away? It's not that simple. I couldn't do much before I was promoted to Secret Realm, but now? Can I really let Zhou Minzhen run back to his nest? Su Jie snorted coldly. He was one to hold a grudge. The previous targeting from Zhou Minzhen was fresh in his mind, and now that Su Jie had been promoted to Secret Realm, there was no way he'd allow his foe to continue living in peace. That was not Su Jie's style. I have a grudge to settle with him too. He's blocked me in East Victory City before. Ning Xinyue looked at Su Jie, opened her left hand to reveal 5 fingers, and said earnestly, "Shall we split it 50-50? Sure." Su Jie didn't haggle with Ning Xinyue over the spoils. He stood up and walked towards the mountain gate of Ghost Ridge Palace, with Ning Xinyue following closely behind. Stepping out of the mountain gate, Su Jie began to fly, not relying on the flight ability inherited from the Thousand-Hand Centipede, but utilizing the unique Qi manipulation flight exclusive to the secret realm. With each breath, Su Jie soared upward, flying into the high clouds. Ning Xinyue accompanied him in flight, even intentionally turning back to make a face at Su Jie, while their speed continued to increase. "You little rascal, trying to compete with me in speed?" Su Jie glanced sidelong at Ning Xinyue, who was half a body's length beside him. He stacked the flying ability inherited from the Thousand-Hand Centipede on top of his primordial spirit's influence on his torso, further increasing his speed. In less than a minute, Su Jie had completely outpaced Ning Xinyue, leaving her unable to even see his taillights. How can he fly so fast? Ning Xinyue's bright eyes were wide with disbelief. Ice currents swirled around her, but no matter what she did, she couldn't catch up to Su Jie, as there was a clear gap between them. Chasing and fleeing, the two of them flew towards the edge of the mountain gate. Heavens cast the omens, revealing fortune and misfortune. Demon map, open. Su Jie manipulated the spell, and the air rippled, revealing a semi-transparent portal. This was a method of safely activating the mountain protection array that only the Hidden Realm Elders of Ghost Ridge Palace would teach. Through it, Su Jie was able to sneak out of Ghost Ridge Palace with Ning Xinyue. Can you lock onto their location? Having left the territory of Ghost Ridge Palace, Su Jie looked at Ning Xinyue. She had been tasked by Su Jie with tracking Zhou Minzen's group. "I placed a traceable object on one of the Heavenly Soul Sect disciples. They likely haven't noticed it yet." Ning Xinyue pulled out a compass, fiddled with it for a while, and after taking some time to estimate the direction, she said, "Southwest, a little over 300 li away. It matches my estimate. They are not flying as fast as us with disciples in tow, so we can catch up." Su Jie chuckled coldly, and then whispered his plan into Ning Xinyue's ear. "Driving the wolf to devour the tiger. That's really ruthless." Ning Xinyue murmured, but her eyes gleamed with excitement and clearly looking forward to it. When the afternoon arrived, Zhou Minzen and Zhao Lianshan's group, who were hurrying back to the Heavenly Soul Sect, suddenly heard shouts of killing. Then they saw a troop of righteous cultivators charging and attacking, loudly shouting as they fought. "Kill these demon cultivators from Ghost Ridge Palace. To think they dare to barge into our territory and act recklessly. Our elder is here now. Let's see how you'll escape. Quick, chase them. They're running towards the southwest. Don't let them get away." This group of righteous individuals numbered over 100, with 8 or 9 elders leading them, their faces filled with rage as they pursued their prey. Zhou Minzen and the others were completely dumbfounded. They had originally been extremely cautious to avoid the patrols of the righteous sects, and with the eerie ability of the fierce ghosts, their movements were still very smooth. Who would have thought that these righteous cultivators would create such a mess, charging over as if their lair had been poked? Now their secret operation was ruined, as both parties had caught sight of each other from a distance. "Is it these people?" An elder leading the righteous cultivators inquired of a disheveled disciple beside him. These elders had rushed over in response to a distress signal and had not actually seen what the enemies looked like. "It's them, shrouded in ghostly energy. The demon cultivators who attacked us also mockingly used fierce ghosts. There's absolutely no mistake." The disciple didn't hesitate to say, leaving the members of the Heavenly Soul Sect across from him with a question mark over their heads. "They were just walking along here. Who the hell attacked you?" "Wait, it's a misunderstanding." Zhao Lianshan still wanted to explain, but how would righteous cultivators listen to the words of demon cultivators? What's there to quibble about? "Fellow comrades, disciples, follow me to vanquish the demons." The leading elder of the righteous side took out the Xuanmu ancient bronze tripod and, without another word, used it to attack. The other elders and disciples followed in the charge, believing that the opposing side was definitely made up of demon cultivators, so there was no mistake in their attack. "Meet the enemy, and look for an opportunity to scatter and run later on." Zhao Lianshan's expression turned solemn as he ordered those around him. Seeing the ferocity of the incoming enemies, he was already thinking of escaping. When the two sides clashed, it was like water and fire meeting, instantly escalating the battle to a fever pitch. One side used various mysterious Taoist skills and magic artifacts, while the other wielded fierce ghosts and Yin souls, fighting in an extremely brutal manner. 20 kilometers away from the battlefield, Su Jie and Ning Xinyue were hiding in a cave concealed by a formation. Seeing this scene, Ning Xinyue couldn't help but ask, "Aren't they fighting a bit too fiercely? The righteous side has so many people. What if they are all killed? Wouldn't that affect the alliance meeting? Who told you to recklessly collect magic artifacts in others' territories? The Vajra bracelet you sent flying around, geez, it was like you were shopping, taking away the fellow cultivators' livelihood tools. How could they not react fiercely?" Su Jie knocked Ning Xinyue's head, speaking irritably. Ning Xinyue, holding her head, rolled her eyes at Su Jie, very dissatisfied. "You're one to talk. You were the one who let the ghost bride release Paperman. You're no better than me." The two chatted idly, and in less than 20 minutes, the Heavenly Soul Sect's outnumbered group had already been overwhelmed. When disaster struck, they scattered in all directions. The members of the Heavenly Soul Sect fled separately. There is a saying that when facing a tiger, you don't need to run faster than the tiger, just faster than your friends. Zhou Minzhen was lucky he flew faster than his comrades. As long as those lagging behind could stop the righteous cultivators, he saw it as his chance to escape. And fortunately for Zhou Minzhen, he was quite confident in his speed and swiftly moved away from the tense battlefield. This escape lasted until nightfall. He had actually shaken off the pursuers long ago, but he didn't dare to stop for too long. He ran into a desolate mountain range and finally came to a halt. Phew! Finally shook off those righteous cultivators. Zhou Minzhen tidied his clothes, ready to find a hidden place to hide for a while. But just then, Zhou Minzhen instinctively became alert, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw something in the sky approaching, accompanied by a voice. "Ha ha ha ha! I have noticed the fateful tie with you, my friend. Please stop for a chat. A gift awaits as you turn around." The approaching figure was a person, who from afar laughed heartily. As Zhou Minzhen was in doubt, his pupils suddenly constricted, and he swiftly turned his head aside. Whoosh! A white light streaked past his neck, tearing open half of his neck, exposing his throat, blood vessels, and muscles to the air. Had he reacted any slower just then, his head would have been severed. "You actually dodged that." Su Jie caught the white light, which was the white-boned sky-slaying sword, refined into a top-grade magic artifact. Su Jie had intended to launch a sneak attack, but Zhou Minzhen had been alert. His laughter was meant to lower the hostility. Then he invited the treasure to spin around, which Zhou Minzhen narrowly avoided. "It's you." Zhou Minzhen looked up to see a young man descending upon an insect cloud from the sky. With just one look, Zhou Minzhen recognized Su Jie. "Surprised, aren't you? Did you think that after I became the ruler of Secret Realm 2, I would come looking for you?" Su Jie sat with a faint smile on his face, sitting atop a giant throne formed by the insect cloud, with the white-boned sky-slaying sword in his hand. He looked down at Zhou Minzhen from his elevated position. "I was thinking that today I would finally be able to take back my ghost bride." Zhou Minzhen, with a malicious tone, violently threw out a black sphere. Soul-capturing ball. Explode. The soul-capturing ball was a one-time use magic artifact, which had the mighty ability to capture souls and steal spirits. Even those in the secret realm wouldn't dare to touch it lightly. Boom! The soul-capturing ball burst open, but it only emitted a puff of white smoke, and nothing happened. Meanwhile, Zhou Minzhen had already flown away from the battle, fleeing from Su Jie's side. He had only thrown a fake soul-capturing ball to scare Su Jie. His real intention was to escape. Pretty clever, but not by much. I've never been afraid of anyone when it comes to speed. Under Su Jie's feet, swarms of insects dispersed with a rumble, his hair lighting up with purple arcs of electricity. With his primordial spirit's power also being utilized, Su Jie swiftly caught up to Zhou Minzhen without much effort. This time, Without even getting close, Su Jie had already let fly the white-boned sky-slaying sword again, with continuous bolts of purple cloud, heavenly thunder raining down from the sky. Crack! Zhou Minzhen, who was dodging the white-boned sky-slaying sword, was unable to avoid the heavenly thunder. Half of his body was blackened and scorched by a strike. Su Jie's primordial spirit was extremely powerful, and even made the might of the purple cloud heavenly thunder increase dramatically. Zhou Minzhen, a guy on the second level of the secret realm, couldn't withstand it at all. Not a bad place, a treasured land of feng shui. Using it as your burial ground is letting you off cheap. Su Jie moved through the void with leisurely steps, approaching Zhou Minzhen step by step, further shaking the opponent's spirit. Do you really think you can finish me off? Zhou Minzhen, seeing no way to dodge, revealed a sinister expression. He didn't waste any more words with Su Jie, his left hand taking out the 10,000 soul banner, and his right hand summoning the 9 Suns Ghost Mother. However, compared to the last time they clashed, Zhou Minzhen's 10,000 soul banner, which was once filled with 100,000 Yin souls, now only had a sparse 20 to 30,000. And around the 9 Suns Ghost Mother, there were only 5 ghost infants left, with the other 4 gone without a trace. It was evident that Zhou Minzhen had suffered a terrible beating in the process of clashing with those from the righteous sect previously, which is why he ran upon seeing Su Jie, because at this point, his strength was greatly diminished. TSK, so this is all that's left of your assets? A crippled 6th grade fierce ghost, a 10,000 soul banner that has dropped to only 2 or 3,000 souls, and your top grade magic tool soul fragment sword, which you threw over there on the battlefield. What do you have to fight me with? Su Jie's eyes glinted with a fierce chill, like daggers, stabbing into Zhou Minzhen's heart, making his face look extremely ugly. Let me go if you have the guts, and wait until I'm fully restored to give you a fair fight. Zhou Minzhen knew that Su Jie was not easy to mess with. He had heard about Su Jie's advancement through the ranks with the Immortal Seed's potential. Even at his peak, he didn't have absolute confidence in winning against Su Jie, let alone now in his weakened state. Talking about fairness? Do you think I'm a fool? I'm a demon cultivator. I prey on the likes of you, the weak and sickly. Su Jie had no concern for martial ethics. On his left side appeared the shadow of the Ghost Bride, and on his right, the 1,000-handed centipede transformed into a 12 meters long, ferocious poisonous insect. Wife, Shao Qian, no need for courtesy. As Su Jie waved his hand grandly, Su Jie's left and right protectors sprang into action together. The 1,000-hand centipede roared, its massive body rearing up, its facial armor splitting open, as hundreds of purple light rays burst forth. Zhou Minzhen, manipulating the 10,000 soul banner, resisted the 1,000-hand centipede, as beams of purple light ray instantly annihilated a large number of Yin souls. In the past, the 10,000 soul banner could form the Demon Cave Mountain formation and block the 1,000-hand centipede, even suppress it, but this time the tables had turned. Faced with these Yin souls that couldn't form the Demon Cave formation, the 1,000-hand centipede acted extremely arrogantly, directly charging into the crowd of Yin souls. Beams of high-temperature rays exploded everywhere, its mouth spewing death decline curse clouds, killing Yin souls which continuously turned into black smoke and dissipated, charging straight at Zhou Minzhen. At the same time, the Ghost Bride gently lifted her hand, looking at her enemy Zhou Minzhen, as terrifying curse power spread, causing Zhou Minzhen's complexion to change drastically. His body became stiff, his clothing transforming toward a wedding dress as he hastily had the 9 Suns Ghost Mother block in front of him. Yet the 9 Suns Ghost Mother, when fighting alone, was no match for the 5th grade wedding dress ghost, let alone now that the Ghost Bride had advanced to the 6th grade. Just as the ghost infants began to move, intending to pounce on Su Jie and the Ghost Bride, a terrifying scene occurred. Lantern after lantern descended like red twilight from the sky. Swaying gently, the Ghost Mother's head and body began to stretch and twist violently, pulled by an invisible force. The 5 ghost infants trying to return were blocked by mirror girls appearing on the scene, fair arms cradling the ghost infants, each layer piling upon the other, with thousands of mirror girls compressing, utterly submerging the figures of the ghost infants. Do you know the meaning of death? Han Ruyan had appeared in front of the ghost mother at some point, her jade hand gently caressing the ghost mother's cheek. Above her head, a black moon quietly rose, her bloody pupils blooming. The ghost mother's body began to be severed from her feet upward, with tens of thousands of fine blades interweaving and cutting, spreading upwards incessantly. Shins, thighs, hips, waist, chest. The ghost mother tried to struggle, but against the power of the ghost bride, her struggle seemed utterly futile. Perhaps sensing the fear known as annihilation, she opened her mouth wide, calling for her children. It was a pity that her ghost infants were already suppressed by the combined effort of the mirror girl and the lantern ghost, and she could hardly save herself. In the end, the ghost mother could only watch helplessly as she was sliced into pieces by the ghost bride's hand, with even her brain being cut into dregs, leading to her complete death. Han Ruyan's face revealed a trace of dead, icy cold smile, remembering how the ghost mother had once pursued her in East Victory City, and now she had completed her revenge. Elsewhere, Zhou Minzhen could not afford to worry about the death of the Nine Sons' ghost mother as he was nearing the same fate as her. It was during Zhou Minzhen's retreat that the long-hidden Ning Xinyue leapt down from a tree, her left hand Vajra beak striking Zhou Minzhen's head, smashing his brain to pieces, while her right hand unleashed rolling cold waves, aimed to freeze him in ice. Two secret realms. You all have such ruthless hearts. Zhou Minzhen's left foot was frozen to the ground, and without any hesitation, he severed his left leg and continued to run, his face a mixture of shock and rage, unable to believe that Su Jie had reinforcements hidden. His life force was indeed very tenacious, a common trait among demon cultivators. What to say? Ning Xinyue tilted her head as she looked at Su Jie. What else can we say? Dealing with this devil, we don't need to talk about Jianghu's righteousness. Everyone attack together. Su Jie, riding on the thousand-hand centipede, flew past, his voice echoing far and wide. Ning Xinyue was speechless, looking at Su Jie, who was riding the thousand-handed poisonous insect, with fierce ghosts lingering behind him, the insect cloud obscuring the sky dome, a bone sword in his left hand, and a soul-summoning banner in his right hand. She couldn't suppress her desire to mock. This bastard must have forgotten he's also a demon cultivator. You look even more like a devil than Zhou Minzhen does. Despite her mockery, Ning Xinyue's actions didn't slow in the slightest, swiftly intercepting Zhou Minzhen as he turned to flee. At this moment, Zhou Minzhen had no way out. Faced with the blockade of two secret realms, this half-crippled cultivator from Secret Realm 2nd level, despite his cultivation, could only be beaten back step by step. The Nine Sons' ghost mother was killed, and the 10,000 soul banner was nearly destroyed. If you kill me, are you not afraid of exposing the plot and causing the collaboration between Ghost Ridge Palace and Heavenly Soul Sect to fail? As Zhou Minzhen fled, he attempted to use his words to secure a sliver of survival. Dead men don't speak, and afterward, if Heavenly Soul Sect seeks someone to blame, they would blame the righteous cultivators. Perfectly, in the coming war, Heavenly Soul Sect could avenge you and strike harder against the righteous cultivators. That aligns perfectly with my desires. Su Jie was utterly unmoved. His words just fell, and he raised his hand to summon. Boom! A purple cloud heavenly thunder struck from afar. A thunderbolt as thick as a thigh sent Zhou Minzhen from the sky to the ground, leaving a deep crater 5 or 6 meters deep with Zhou Minzhen at the center, emitting blue smoke. Zhou Minzhen tried to burrow into the ground to escape, but Ning Xinyue directly covered the area with a cold current, not only solidifying the surface as hard as steel, difficult to dig through but also freezing his entire body. I can't die, how can I possibly die here, at the hands of you two juniors? Screaming frantically, Zhou Minzhen struggled to leap up. However, although he managed to break free from the ice, his outer skin remained attached to the ice. With his leap, what came out was a bloodied figure with exposed flesh and sinews, like a skinned live pig, with its skin left completely intact below. Humph, what about juniors? When I was your age, if I was still stuck in the secret realm, I would have been too ashamed to meet anyone. Ning Xinyu threw out a Vajra bracelet, smashing Zhou Minzan's skull, and his left eye burst out of its socket. "Oh, such a ruthless girl. I'll kill you. I'll kill you, ah." Zhou Minzan, like a dying beast, with his remaining eye flashing with brutal ferocity. "Scaring me? You think just because you're ugly I'd be afraid of you?" Ning Xinyu muttered. The Xianin body's cold current burst out in an instant, freezing Zhou Minzan into the ground. The next moment, Su Jie riding the 1,000-hand centipede smashed down heavily. The 80-meter-long, immensely heavy 1,000-hand centipede crushed Zhou Minzan into a pulp, leaving a deep crater in the ground. This time, no matter how tenacious Zhou Minzan's life force was, he was unable to continue his escape. "I want you dead." A furious roar erupted, and a semi-transparent orb flew out from the ground, starkly revealing Zhou Minzan's battered remnant soul. His divine soul had already developed limbs and facial features including mouth, nose, and ears. Only the most difficult eyes remained unformed. It was still not a primordial spirit, and the divine soul was riddled with holes, having been battered into disrepair during the previous battle by Su Jie's attacks mixed with primordial spirit power. However, this divine soul nearing the state of a primordial spirit gave Zhou Minzan the power for one final strike. His target was clear. He headed straight for Su Jie, intending to rush his divine soul into Su Jie's brain, determined to drag Su Jie down with him even in death. Even though Su Jie had a primordial spirit, the head is a person's most vulnerable spot. Charging in to create havoc would make Su Jie suffer, even if it couldn't kill him. Useless struggle. Su Jie quietly watched as Zhou Minzan's divine soul rushed towards him. As it neared him, an arc-shaped light membrane appeared in front of Su Jie, directly blocking Zhou Minzan's remnant soul and preventing it from advancing even an inch. Zhou Minzan could hardly believe it. He saw a golden lotus appear in Su Jie's hand, its 3 green leaves swaying gracefully and sprinkling starlight, effortlessly blocking his death blow. 9 grades sacred lotus, an innate spiritual object. Ha ha ha. I've lost fairly, lost so fairly. Zhou Minzan felt despair. He started to give a bitter laugh, realizing that even making Su Jie suffer was now an impossible dream. In your next life, find a good family to be born into and stop being a demon cultivator. You're not cut out for this. Su Jie's palm radiated with heavenly thunder, turning into a spherical lightning that enveloped Zhou Minzan's remnant soul. Amidst his screams, it completely obliterated and vaporized him, erasing him from existence between heaven and earth. From then on, Zhou Minzan, the elder of Heavenly Soul Sect who had once brought immense pressure to Su Jie in East Victory City, fell by Su Jie's hand on this day. All done and dusted. Ning Xinyu picked up the storage bag on the ground, jumped beside Su Jie with high spirits, and shared the joy of victory with Su Jie, taking out everything inside the storage bag. First, Su Jie took down Zhou Minzan's 10,000 soul banner. Following Zhou Minzan's death, this banner had become ownerless. Su Jie only needed to erase the marks left by Zhou Minzan to claim the remaining Yin souls for himself and integrate them into his own 10,000 soul banner. So much money, Su Jie, we are rich. Ning Xinyu happily bounced around, wanting to hug Su Jie's neck, but suddenly felt a chill on her back. Turning her head, she saw the ghost bride, Han Ruyan, not far away, her lifeless hollow eyes prompting Ning Xinyu to decisively abandon her attempt. All these items combined must be worth 200,000 spirit stones, right? No wonder he's a senior elder of Heavenly Soul Sect, unlike those poor novices just promoted in the secret realm. Su Jie looked to the ground. Rows of bottles and jars containing elixirs, spiritual materials piled up like a small mountain, about 5 or 6 meters tall, along with some magic artifacts and talismans, although they were rather low-level, not useful in combat at the secret realm. Presumably, Zhou Minzan had intended them as rewards for his disciples, but now they all went to Su Jie. We agreed to share it equally. Su Jie divided half of it for Ning Xinyu, which somewhat surprised her. What's the matter, you don't want it? Su Jie raised an eyebrow and looked back at Ning Xinyu. I thought you would take more for yourself. Ning Xinyu stuck out her tongue, delightedly hugging her spoils. Although she was rich, who would complain about having more money? I'm fair with my own people. Su Jie smiled. If he exploited Ning Xinyue too many times, it wouldn't be so easy to make use of Ning Xinyue's free labor in the future. Patting the thousand-handed centipede, Su Jie stretched and said, "Let's go. Time to head home." Okay. Ning Xinyue also jumped aboard the thousand-handed centipede, counting her gains on the back of the centipede, looking like a little money lover. The thousand-handed centipede took to the sky. Beams of purple light rays repeatedly bombed the surrounding ground, erasing all traces of the battle. After sweeping the area with his primordial spirit and making sure there were no errors, Su Jie took Ning Xinyue and returned to Ghost Ridge Palace. Ghost Ridge Palace. Su Jie and Ning Xinyue successfully returned to the sect. If there's ever another good opportunity like this, be sure to find me again. Ning Xinyue hopped off the thousand-handed centipede, turned her head back to Su Jie, said these words, and, humming a cheerful tune, ran off into the distance. Su Jie, holding the new fortune he had acquired, returned to his residence's secluded meditation room. Xiao Qian, let's see what your limit is. Su Jie lifted the shrunken thousand-handed centipede high into the air and piled a mountain-like heap of spirit stones on the ground, looking incredibly bold. The thousand-handed centipede, knowing Su Jie was about to enhance it, twisted its body excitedly. Go ahead and eat. Upon hearing this, the thousand-handed centipede let out a whinny and happily began feasting. It swallowed the spirit stones one by one, and soon its belly swelled up. Su Jie then placed his hand on the head of the thousand-handed centipede, beginning to use the enhancement ability for poisonous insects he had acquired after reaching the secret realm to modify his life-bound poisonous insect. The thousand-handed centipede was a mid-grade 5 refinement poisonous insect, and enhancing it was much more difficult compared to other poisonous insects. Even with the first-level cultivation from the secret realm, Su Jie did not have a smooth journey. Fortunately, the thousand-handed centipede was a life-poisonous insect, and it was in perfect sync with Su Jie's intentions, very much cooperating with him, and would actively regulate its qi and blood circulation to fuse with Su Jie's enhancement. And those swallowed spirit stones transformed into a surging flow of energy, continuously baptizing the thousand-handed centipede's body, allowing the enhancement to proceed non-stop. This enhancement process continued for 3 whole days and nights. 3 days later, Su Jie finally completed this round of enhancement. Xiao Qian, show me what you can do now. Su Jie took the thousand-handed centipede to the training ground of his residence and took out a 3-meter diameter, 20-meter-long solid cast alloy iron column from his storage bag. This thing was used by the puppet hall as a tool for a certain kind of pressing machine effect, but it got damaged and was scrapped. Usually, Su Jie took it to tease the thousand-handed centipede for fun, similar to a cat toy. But because it was too heavy, Su Jie could hardly move it himself. Aside from barely fitting it into his storage bag, he could only roll it down from the high mountain using a massive number of pale corpse hands, and the thousand-handed centipede liked to chase after it for play, rolling along while standing on top of it. Sizzle! At Su Jie's command, the body of the thousand-handed centipede swelled as it caught the wind and returned to its 80-meter original form before it opened its massive mouth. Compared to before, the mouth of the thousand-handed centipede had completely changed. Its mouth now featured a pair of razor-like mandibles, much like those of many beetles. In the past, although the thousand-handed centipede was large, due to its structural limitations, its mandibles lacked sufficient biting power, making it weaker than other beetle-type poisonous insects of the same level. This time, Su Jie focused on transforming the thousand-handed centipede's mouthparts, endowing it with a much greater threat in close combat. The massive mandibles of the thousand-handed centipede opened wide, and it took a bite. In the next moment, the seemingly indestructible body seemed to contain infinite potential, as the power and biting force exploded forth like a landslide. Crack! With one bite, the alloy steel column sparked and distorted, and the thousand-handed centipede bit it in half at the waist. The broken edge wasn't smooth, showing many uneven traces, which further demonstrated the power of the thousand-handed centipede's razor-like mandibles. With such a terrifying biting force, any cultivator who got close and bitten by the thousand-handed centipede in the future would present an incredibly gruesome scene. The thousand-handed centipede, seemingly aware of the ferocity of its mandibles, proceeded to bite the remaining steel column, breaking it into segments, the massive noise echoing all around. Su Jie tried to take out the white-bone sky-slaying sword and activated the sword technique. Shao Qian. With a loud shout from Su Jie, the thousand-handed centipede stood tall and proud as the white-bone sky-slaying sword, cutting through clouds and piercing the sky, slashed towards its mandibles. A fierce collision and frictional noise rang out, and a mere faint dent appeared on the thousand-handed centipede's pair of mandibles, which were almost unscathed under the attack of the top-grade magical artifact, the white-bone sky-slaying sword. Crack! Then the thousand-handed centipede bit down sharply, with its razor mandibles clamping down on the white-bone sky-slaying sword. An eruption of terrifying biting strength made the sword violently tremble, and a fierce struggle began between the two. One side exhaling a sword aura sharp enough to easily pierce steel, the white-bone sky-slaying sword attempted to penetrate the mandibles. The other side, relying on the monstrous strength of the beast and mandibles even tougher than steel, sought to snap the white-bone sky-slaying sword. After about 10 minutes of intense struggle, the trembling of the white-bone sky-slaying sword grew weaker, and a faint sound of fracturing could be heard from within it. Continuing this would surely result in the top-grade magical artifact being bitten into pieces by the thousand-handed centipede. In this battle of might, the thousand-handed centipede proved to be the superior one. At this point, the thousand-handed centipede's mandibles could even crush a top-grade magical artifact, which highlighted the significant boost in strength it gained from this enhancement. Against a normal mid-grade magical artifact, it would certainly not withstand a single bite from the thousand-handed centipede and would be destroyed on the spot. Shao Qian, that's enough. Su Jie clapped his hands, and the thousand-handed centipede finally released its mandibles, not wishing to truly damage its master's weapon. It then ran over to Su Jie, happily rubbing its head against him, its eyes full of joyful expression, and then it turned to look at its other body parts. The implication was clear. It wished for Su Jie to also enhance its other parts. No more money. Stroking the cold mandibles of the thousand-handed centipede, Su Jie had already poured over 100,000 spirit stones into it, just to grant the creature unparalleled mandibles. The thousand-handed centipede shrank its body, ran back into Su Jie's arms, and began to roll back and forth as if acting like a spoiled child. Acting spoiled is useless. Your master is truly poor now. Flipping the thousand-handed centipede's forehead, Su Jie thought about how just strengthening its mouthparts had used such an enormous amount of resources. To enhance its larger body and the hundreds of corpse hands would cost an unknown number of spirit stones, a cost Su Jie simply could not afford at present. For the thousand-handed centipede, this kind of enhancement wasn't akin to an overall evolution of a poisonous insect, but more like assembling a racing car. It was about swapping in better basic components for the insect. Su Jie, of course, also wanted to upgrade the thousand-handed centipede to top configuration, but alas, his pocket was embarrassingly empty, and he genuinely couldn't afford it. Master, someone requests an audience. While Su Jie was interacting with the thousand-handed centipede, suddenly there were footsteps from outside. Turning around, Su Jie saw the steward leading in a disciple from the law enforcement team. Upon seeing Su Jie, the disciple immediately handed over a document and a transmission token, respectfully saying, "Master Su, the sect master has convened a sect meeting. Please proceed to the sect grand hall immediately." Unfolding the document, Su Jie glanced through it and his brow relaxed. "Lead the way." "Yes, sir." The disciple from the law enforcement team immediately took the lead. Although they were a team directly under the sect master, Su Jie was an elder of the secret realm, truly a pillar of the sect, and his status was far above theirs. Unconsciously, Su Jie was no longer the insignificant character who had to bow and yield in the face of the law enforcement team. Walking along the path, Su Jie arrived at the sect grand hall by the mountain gate. He saw that the place was towering into the clouds, imposing and magnificent, with two Xianshao parasol trees standing like guardians at the entrance, their branches lush and leaves abundant. The surroundings were paved with blue stones, the walls stood tall, and the rooftop of the hall was carved with dragons and phoenixes made of Tiangang stones as spiritual materials, lifelike and radiating a splendid glow. Sunlight poured through the many windows outside the hall, making the entire interior dazzlingly bright. The sect Grand Hall was where the elders discussed important matters, and it wasn't open on normal days. If it was open, it meant something big was happening. Since joining Ghost Ridge Palace, Su Jie had only experienced 2 sect Grand Hall meetings. One was about the rampant alien ghosts, and the other was about the sect wars, both events having a far-reaching impact on Su Jie. Originally, Su Jie could only stay inside the gates, waiting for orders based on the outcomes of the sect Grand Hall meetings. Now, he was one of the members inside the hall, with every word and action potentially affecting countless outer disciples and inner disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace. Master Su. The disciples from the law enforcement team standing guard saw Su Jie, and they promptly greeted and opened the heavy glazed crystal door for him, providing a passageway to the interior. With a step, Su Jie entered, and the grand hall seemed to grow even more solemn. Directly ahead, a large image of the ancestor was hung on the wall, with sect master Zhang Junwei sitting beneath it. Along 2 sides, a row of high chairs were placed, already occupied by about 20 elders. All but those with guarding duties were present. Looking around, Taoist Qiu, Tang Peiqing, Xiao Fengyuan, and a few other familiar faces were there. Su Jie took a seat next to Taoist Qiu, and the elders in the hall thought to themselves that with Su Jie, this immortal seed among them, Taoist Qiu's lineage was likely to grow stronger. I heard you've been out on a trip? Taoist Qiu looked at Su Jie, who, having used his elder privileges to pass through the mountain protection array and leave the sect, was naturally known to have left. Went out to have a bit of fun. Su Jie nodded, keeping the actual circumstances to himself. Master, when does it begin? In defense against Taoist Qiu's further inquiry, Su Jie changed the subject. Attending a sect Grand Hall meeting for the first time, Su Jie was quite curious. Just 2 more to come soon, answered Taoist Qiu, closing his eyes to rest. As he had said, before long the last 2 elders arrived. With the hall doors closed and the formation activated, the meeting officially began. The reason I've summoned everyone is to discuss the matter of forming an alliance with Heavenly Soul Sect, announced Zhang Junwei, unleashing the topic. Ghost Ridge Palace wanted to break the siege of the righteous sects and needed external assistance. Heavenly Soul Sect was the chosen ally. The specific terms of cooperation with Heavenly Soul Sect have been preliminarily settled. They require payment of 8 million spirit stones after defeating righteous cultivators and our assistance in establishing their mountain gate in the Nanyang City region. In return, we demand that Heavenly Soul Sect must fully mobilize, deploying at least 20 elders from the Secret Realm, 1 at the Taoist Platform Realm, and 5,000 disciples to join in battle, striking the righteous sects from both front and back in unison with us, said Zhang Junwei, stating the demands of the cooperation, which to Ghost Ridge Palace were actually not excessive. 8 million spirit stones were indeed a large sum. Many of the less advanced elders barely had a few tens of thousands of spirit stones, with those newly promoted perhaps not even possessing 10,000. Seasoned elders could boast assets of 200,000 or 300,000, while individuals like Tang Peiqing, who had lived for hundreds of years, or combat powerhouses like Taoist Qiu in the Secret Realm, might have wealth exceeding 1 million. It was thus evident how vast a fortune 8 million spirit stones represented. But considering Ghost Ridge Palace's current beleaguered state, if the siege could be lifted, the cost was entirely acceptable. The remuneration is fair, but they intend to establish a mountain gate in Nanyang City and then cling to Qingzhou without leaving? That place is not far from us. With a furrowed brow and a heavy voice, Taoist Qiu said, although Ghost Ridge Palace is now forced by the righteous sect into treacherous mountains filled with crises, it still holds ambitious aspirations. In Qingzhou, although there is more than one demon sect, Ghost Ridge Palace stands as the only significant one. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible for it to withstand the siege of the 5 righteous sects for so long while still maintaining its combat effectiveness. Ghost Ridge Palace does not wish for more powerful demon sects to enter Qingzhou, especially when they are so close to their own base. Even villains don't like living next to other villains, let alone allowing others to snore beside one's bed. Let's allow them to stay here for now. If those righteous sects continue the siege, having two sects nearby could provide mutual support. Zhang Junwei said this and then added, once we have regained our strength, we will address the opposition. Now is the time to unite outside forces. The elders below whispered among themselves. Through divine soul transmission, Xiao Fengyuan asked Su Jie, Brother Su, what do you think? I'll sit and watch. Seeing Xiao Fengyuan's speechless face, Su Jie corrected himself. Right now, the key for Ghost Ridge Palace is to survive. Whether Heavenly Soul Sect will be trouble for us in the future, at least for the current stage, we have no other choice. Su Jie was whispering with Xiao Fengyuan, and Zhang Junwei caught on to their conversation. Zhang Junwei looked over and said indifferently, Su Jie, you are our sect's immortal seed and the youngest from the secret realm. I'd like to hear your opinion. Su Jie didn't expect to be called upon, but he wasn't stage fright and spoke. I think the sect master is right. His considerations are for the overall situation. No one wants a new competitor in their territory, but as elders, you should be aware of our sect's current plight. A large number of low and mid-level disciples have fallen in battle, trade routes are cut, and righteous disciples continually harass us. Our sect's reserves of wealth, materials, and manpower are all being consumed. We can barely keep going by relying on the mountain protection array, and that's only because those righteous sects have slowed down their offensive. If we continue like this, we will definitely be the first to falter. With this well-spoken plea, many elders nodded in agreement. Zhang Junwei looked at Su Jie a few more times and revealed a faint smile on his face. Obviously, he was satisfied with Su Jie's response. That's right, Ghost Ridge Palace has reached a do-or-die moment. If we still care about our reputation now, we'll only end up losing this war. When our mountain gate is breached, what face will we have to meet the founders of Ghost Ridge Palace in the afterlife? At that time, Tang Peiqing also provided assistance, sharing sect master Zhang Junwei's concerns. The discussions gradually died down. Clearly, everyone understood the rationale behind what Su Jie and Tang Peiqing had said, but there was an innate reluctance, an unwillingness to accept other demon sects encroaching on their territory. Now, anyone who disagrees with this alliance, please raise your hand. Zhang Junwei knocked on the armrest and made the proposal. Only a few hands were raised, with the majority of the elders in concurrence with the alliance. Then it's decided. We'll join forces with the Heavenly Soul Sect and fend off the siege of the Mountain Gate by the 5 righteous sects led by Guanchao Pavilion. Zhang Junwei brought down the gavel, settling the alliance with Heavenly Soul Sect. As for the specific time of combat, we've set it for 4 months from now. During this time, Refining Hall, Alchemy Pavilion, Sword Casting Platform, Spirit Medicine Garden, all departments must work together to produce various war necessities. This will determine the outcome of the great battle. Upon this declaration, many elders stood up to express their support. Sect Master, Refining Hall and Alchemy Pavilion will spare no effort to provide magic artifacts and spiritual elixirs, arming our disciples. Tang Peiqing bowed and said, he managed the Refining Hall and Alchemy Pavilion, second only to Zhang Junwei in status within Ghost Ridge Palace. His stance said a lot. Sect Master, the sword casting platform I oversee will also give it our all, crafting more flying swords and demon swords to help our sect weather this storm. Another elder stood up. The sword casting platform was also part of artifact refining, but specialized in crafting flying swords. Those who worked there were rare sword cultivators in Ghost Ridge Palace. Though few in number, their combat prowess should not be underestimated. Chao Yuan, the previous owner of the sword-nourishing gourd hooked on Su Jie's waist, was a member of the sword-casting platform, and the gourd was cultivated by them. Sect Master, from tomorrow on, Puppet Hall will dedicate all our manpower to talisman production, ensuring each disciple is equipped with 3 talismans before the battle commences. Array Pattern Palace will expedite the creation of war-related arrays. When the great battle comes, we'll deploy them for slaughter and help the sect achieve victory. Sect Master, I, Xiao Fengyuan, May not have much, but I do have this life. When the decisive battle comes, I will lead the charge, opening a path of victory for our sect. One after another, elders stood, even those without departments to oversee, indicating they were ready to exert their utmost for the sect. Zhang Junwei, looking at this fervent scene, said with gratification, I appreciate your dedication. The sect will allocate funds to all departments, working together to secure victory in this decisive battle. Yes, the elders shouted in unison. Sect Master, Puppet Hall also has something to say. At this time, Su Jie stood up, indicating that his Puppet Hall was also ready to contribute. However, upon hearing Su Jie's words, the eyes of many elders turned strange. That was because the Puppet Hall was so marginalized that it was almost unnoticed. In past sect affairs like this, they were practically non-existent. Zhang Junwei was rather puzzled and asked, What are you trying to say? Let me make it clear up front. There is no spare funding for Puppet Hall to carry out puppet research. Any extra money has to be spent on the war. Sect Master, I'm not here to ask for funds. I'm here to contribute to the sect. With a confident smile, Su Jie said, I've designed a brand new type of special puppet that can play a huge role in the war. You may not believe me just by my word. So I'd like you to come and see the quality of the new puppet for yourself. Oh, that's news to me. Then let's take a look, he replied. Zhang Junwei was somewhat skeptical, but Su Jie's expression didn't seem like he was boasting. Please, Sect Master and all elders, you might also want to take a look. Our Puppet Hall has changed. Turning to invite the other elders, and considering the face of the immortal seed as well as their genuine curiosity about what new inventions Puppet Hall had created to make Su Jie so confident, the elders all nodded and agreed to go. After the sect's Grand Hall meeting concluded, Su Jie had someone notify Zhu Zhangqi, while he personally led the sect master and elders outside the mountain gate. Half an hour later, in a flat grassy valley, Su Jie led a group of Ghost Ridge Palace higher-ups to the site. The terrain here was open with a clear view, an excellent place for a trial. Where is the puppet you spoke of? Tang Peiqing's curiosity was piqued by Su Jie, and he wanted to witness the secret puppet Su Jie had mentioned. The other elders felt the same. In their minds, Puppet Hall was only known for flashy but impractical combat puppets. The fighting power was passable, but they were too costly. A large-scale battle could deplete all resources, and most still preferred poisonous insects. Please look, the people have arrived. Su Jie extended his hand toward the south, where a row of huge dark silhouettes appeared on the horizon. The elders turned to look and saw groups of 12-horned scale horses, each cluster dragging a strange steel puppet behind them. This puppet was entirely different from the humanoid ones they had seen in the past. It didn't share any similarities. Round, black wheels with a silver-gray, rectangular steel shell. It looked quite ordinary. The horned scale horses, known for their stamina and strength and as the primary beasts of burden for the sect, moved effortlessly over mountains as if on flat ground. Even while dragging the heavy rocket artillery, they quickly reached Su Jie's location, accompanied by dozens of Puppet Hall disciples making their way over. Hall Master, all 30 rocket artilleries have been brought here, said Zhu Zhangqi as he wiped the sweat from his forehead and hurried over to Su Jie. Ever since receiving the task from Su Jie, the entire Puppet Hall had been working non-stop, busying themselves in the rocket artillery production. Although the process was simple, the workload became significant when producing in large numbers. And since they were handcrafted, it was very tiring. This is the sect master and the elders. Introduce the rocket artillery to them. Sect master, this is Zhu Zhangqi, the most skilled disciple of our Puppet Hall. He was the one who oversaw the initial production and final shape of the rocket artillery, Su Jie said, patting Zhu Zhangqi on the shoulder, offering him this rare opportunity to show his face. Sect master, elders. Good. The puppet is called rocket artillery. It's a kind. Zhu Zhangqi, a burly man, started to tongue-tie, struggling to speak clearly under the gaze of the elders. Take it easy, no rush, said the sect master with a wave of his hand, then walked over to examine the odd steel machine up close. This was independently designed by the Hall Master, a special puppet that launches attacks using remote firepower. Powered by spirit stones, it fires a warhead filled with poison. As Zhu Zhangxi talked about the puppets he specialized in, he became more fluent and began to speak more freely and at length. After listening, Zhang Junwei gave no reaction. One simply couldn't grasp the allure of the rocket artillery from words alone. Sect Master, this is the secret puppet I mentioned, the rocket artillery that can help our sect win the decisive battle. You may not think much of it just from hearing about it, but please allow me to demonstrate the attack effect. I promise you won't be disappointed, Su Jie said with a smile, gesturing for the Puppet Hall disciples to start adjusting the rocket artillery for a live demonstration. Can you pull this off, kid? Taoist Chiu couldn't help asking, hoping his most promising disciple wouldn't be looked down upon in his first sect assembly. Master, when have I ever let you down? Replied Su Jie confidently, watching the Puppet Hall disciples get the rocket artillery ready to fire. As the rocket artillery slowly elevated to an angle, pointing its dark maw towards the sky dome, disciples brought out rockets and began to load them. Once everything was prepared, Zhu Zhangxi looked at Su Jie and said, Hall Master, all is ready. We can fire at your command. Fire, commanded Su Jie with a nod, issuing the directive. Boom! When the series ignition was initiated, a continuous, thunderous roar erupted from the launch site of the 30 rocket artillery units, resembling a landslide and a tsunami. Rockets with tail fins shot out of the barrels, spraying spiritual power, and soared straight up into the sky. The elders at the scene were quite astonished, not expecting that this puppet weapon named rocket artillery would launch with such immense momentum. Far away, the rockets, spewing tongues of flame and accelerating into the air, streaked a silvery gray trail across the night sky. In just over 20 seconds, a total of 960 rockets were fired, making it look like a meteor shower was falling from the sky. The predetermined target was a small hill, and after a brief flight, all rockets began to fall in parabolic trajectories. The next moment, the small hill shook violently. The acid liquid inside the rockets splattered upon impact. This acid, provided by the human-faced moth and even more corrosive than strong acid, splashed around, covering trees and soil which then shook, dissolved, and sank. The lush trees that had been growing on the hill now quivered like ocean waves and collapsed directly under the corrosion of the acid. Black smoke rose into the sky, nearly erasing all life from the small hill. The massive amount of poison acted like a demon, devouring everything around it. When all the dust had settled, the entire hill was covered in charred scars, craters, and trenches corroded by the poison, resembling wounded flesh, the sight of which was startling. This puppet's weapon is interesting, said Tang Peiqing, his eyes lighting up, finding this inventive method of attack fascinating. He had lived for hundreds of years and had never seen a puppet like this before. Did Puppet Hall really come up with this? I've underestimated them. I did not expect Master Su to be so capable. He hasn't been in charge of Puppet Hall for long, but has already produced such a formidable puppet. This kind of large area strike is indeed extremely lethal in battle, especially against the lower disciples. Such a puppet must not be cheap to produce. If it's too expensive, then its practicality drops considerably. The elders began discussing among themselves. The simultaneous firing of the rocket artillery had overturned their prior assumptions. The unimpressive-looking rocket artillery had effects that were nothing short of astonishing. Taoist Chiu's face showed a smile. Although he did not speak, his face was filled with satisfaction. Not bad. This rocket artillery might not be effective against inner disciples and the secret realm, but the threat it poses to outer disciples is foreseeable, just as you said, making it suitable for use in major battles. How much would these puppets cost? The sect needs a batch to serve as a reserve. Zhu Zhangxi finally spoke up, realizing that for Ghost Ridge Palace, this rocket artillery was a good weapon even as he was more concerned about the cost. In the past, the puppets produced by Puppet Hall were often expensive, usually costing several thousand spirit stones, even painful to use in the secret realm. If the price is too expensive, then their importance will be greatly reduced, as even targeting outer disciples one has to consider cost-effectiveness. Master, our rocket artillery itself costs 400 spirit stones, and each rocket costs 10 spirit stones, making a full volley cost 320 spirit stones, said Su Jie, calling out figures that made Zhu Zhangxi gape. Because Su Jie had doubled the price of the rocket artillery, which only cost 200 spirit stones, and the rockets, which only cost 5 spirit stones. Even taking into account the cost of the human-faced moth acid liquid, this was still too much. That's so cheap. Zhang Junwei was stunned, finding the price surprisingly low. Compared to the combat puppets previously made by the puppet hall, the price was like a fracture. Exactly, that's how cheap it is. Moreover, Master, our rockets can carry different kinds of venom, not just acid. Various types of insect poisons can also be incorporated. Imagine, Master, during a war if we had 200 units of this rocket artillery, firing a volley of 6,400 rockets covering the positions of the righteous cultivators with different types of poison-filled warheads. It would definitely catch them off guard and result in heavy casualties. Su Jie further persuaded, painting the scene vividly. The elders, imagining that scenario, suddenly looked very intrigued. If these puppets really were that cheap, then they had seriously underestimated the effectiveness of the rocket artillery. Can different warheads be loaded? Asked Tang Peiqing, his eyes lighting up. As the master poisoner of Ghost Ridge Palace, no one could surpass him in terms of utilizing poisons, not even the sect master compared to Tang Peiqing. Certainly, Su Jie nodded affirmatively. Blue Star's rocket artillery could be equipped with cluster munitions, missiles, fuel-air explosives, mines, illumination rounds, electronic jamming shells, and chemical gas shells. Ghost Ridge Palace also had a wealth of poison insects to meet these needs. The many elders became interested. These elders, who played with insects, lacked many things, but creating some insect poison was not an issue for them. 200 units. That's too few. Let's go with 300. No, 500 units. Zhang Junwei thought, not hesitating much but rather increasing the order quantity. Sheesh. Taoist Chiu heard the figure and plucked out a few of his beard hairs. That many? The elder standing beside him was also stunned, their jaw dropping. One had to know a low-grade lower-level magical artifact was priced just over 100 spirit stones, while a mid-grade magical artifact had an average price of 7 to 8,000 spirit stones. The cost for 500 units of rocket artillery was about 200,000 spirit stones, and the cost of the rockets fired in a single volley was 160,000 spirit stones. This volley was equivalent to scrapping 1,500 low-grade lower-level magical artifacts at once, or alternatively, scrapping 20 mid-grade magical artifacts. Moreover, the acquisition of these rockets, each vehicle must be equipped with 5 or 6 batches of ammunition. The procurement cost alone would nearly reach 1,000,000 spirit stones. Such a price was almost an unbearable burden for individual cultivators, including the elders. The upcoming battle with the righteous sect might very well determine the life or death of our Ghost Ridge Palace. If we hold on to our money now and lose the battle later, would we rather give it to those righteous sects as spoils of war or pay them as war reparations? Zhang Junwei's words were unquestionable. With these words, he hammered down the final decision. Su Jie could no longer hide the smile on his face. Such a quantity of orders far exceeded his expectations. After a quick calculation, Su Jie couldn't help but get excited. Complete the production within 3 months. Zhang Junwei issued the command, hastening preparations for the great battle against the righteous. Hearing this, Su Jie knew, given the production speed of the puppet hall, that after becoming proficient, they could manage to produce 2 rocket artillery units per day. This was about the limit. However, many of the simpler tasks could be handled by employing outer disciples, while the disciples of the puppet hall would take care of the core components. This shouldn't pose too great a problem. Sect Master, I, Su Jie, guarantee to complete the task. Su Jie directly nodded and promised, making a commitment. In the future, the puppet hall should research more of these beneficial puppets. After encouraging Su Jie with a few words, Zhang Junwei then led the team away. As soon as Zhang Junwei left, the disciples of the puppet hall couldn't hold back anymore, and they all started cheering. Master is mighty. Such a large volume of rocket artillery puppet production, Our puppet hall has never been given such attention by the sect before. Unbelievable. The sect used to not even ask for our puppets. We used to have to beg the sect for funds. Tears welled up in the eyes of these puppet hall disciples, as their department was no longer marginalized within the sect but had gained its attention. Zhu Zhangqi also shared in everyone's joy, but then couldn't help expressing his concern. Master, we charge so much for the rocket artillery and rockets. If the sect finds out. Su Jie scowled and said, "Where is it expensive? Isn't this our cost price?" Zhu Zhangqi subconsciously said, "Aren't the cost of our rocket artillery 200 spirit stones? And the rockets can be made with just 5 spirit stones each?" Having never conducted business before, Zhu Zhangqi thought merely of completing the sect's tasks. The puppet hall always operated at a loss. The idea of making a profit never crossed his mind. Doesn't labor cost money? Aren't my design patents worth money? What about the storage fees for puppets during the period, management fees, fire loss, utility, and spoilage costs? Su Jie counted on his fingers, explaining each item to Zhu Zhangqi. Many things Zhu Zhangqi couldn't understand, but he felt that Su Jie made many good points and was essentially beyond contradiction. Munitions trading was one of the most profitable businesses. How could Su Jie pass up such an opportunity to make money? With the great battle imminent, Ghost Ridge Palace would not be stingy with procurement costs. Naturally, Su Jie intended to make a profit. Otherwise, why go through all the trouble of producing rocket artilleries? And now, the order for 500 rocket artillery units was enough to make Su Jie's fortunes, easily earning him several 100,000 spirit stones. If the sect found out about this, the worst that could happen would be a punishment for Su Jie, confiscating some of the spirit stones. As a demon cultivator, who doesn't seek benefits for themselves? Many elders sought benefits for themselves, such as Taoist Chiu, who had pulled strings for Su Jie at the refining hall to borrow spiritual materials, was also a way of seeking benefits. Having earned so much this time, Su Jie had no intention of keeping it all for himself and quickly issued a new decision. Starting from today, the work of our puppet hall will not be unpaid. Based on the division of labor and the number of puppets produced, we will reward everyone with varying salaries. I will issue detailed rules in a few days. Upon hearing Su Jie's words, the puppet hall disciples, after a few seconds of daze, cheered even louder, continuously offering compliments. It's really great that the master has come to our puppet hall. Does this mean we can make money by producing puppets in the future? Long live Master Su. The faces of these puppet hall disciples were excited. In the past, not to mention making a profit, they even had to pool money to produce puppets, pouring in a lot of funds. It can be said that the disciples still remaining in the puppet hall had an extraordinary passion for puppets. Otherwise, ordinary disciples would have left at the prospect of having to spend their own money. Amid the compliments of these disciples, Su Jie ended his day's journey contentedly. Master Su, the 3 products you asked us to research, the nearsighted pill has been developed according to the requirements. That day, Su Jie received the news, and after rushing to the alchemy pavilion, the disciples he had initially commissioned came up to him, proudly showing him their results. In a tray, there lay a blue-colored elixir, which was the nearsighted pill that the disciples had developed. Su Jie picked up the blue nearsighted pill and asked, "Have they all been tested?" "They have been tested. After taking the nearsighted pill, one's vision will gradually return to normal levels over the following 3 days." "What about side effects?" "There are no other side effects, and in terms of production costs, we've simplified as much as possible according to your instructions. Most of it is made from common materials, so it doesn't cost much to use for ordinary people. Refining a batch of concentrated liquid and mixing it with several common medicinal herbs is enough to supply 1,000,000 pills." After hearing this, Su Jie was extremely satisfied. The elixir perfectly met his requirements. The slimming pills and whitening powder are still in the process of research. These are a bit more difficult to develop, but we are working hard. Take your time with the research. This is your reward for making progress. Su Jie poured out a pile of spirit stones, which made the disciples' eyes gleam with excitement, not expecting an additional reward. "Master Su, We will definitely develop the whitening powder and slimming pills as soon as possible. With the alchemy apprentice's respectful farewell, Su Jie took the formula for the nearsighted pill and returned to his mansion, taking out a pill furnace to begin refining. As for alchemy, Su Jie had almost no clue. But the thing about the nearsighted pills was that they were exceedingly simple. After ruining hundreds of batches, Su Jie finally got the hang of it within 3 days. Alchemy required the control of spiritual power to manipulate the spirit flame for refining, and the secret realm was far superior in controlling spiritual power than the disciples. Considering the low difficulty of these elixirs, which were at the level an alchemy apprentice would make, mastering them wasn't a big deal for Su Jie. Success. Inside the pill furnace was the concentrated liquid. Just a small amount of the concentrated liquid needed to be extracted and mixed with ordinary herbs to produce a large number of pills. Su Jie gathered it up, then opened the ancient mirror and stepped through the portal. Blue Star. Su Jie brought back the concentrated liquid and then called for Lu Yingying. Su Jie, you're back. Yeah, I missed you. Su Jie touched Lu Yingying's cheek. Although she knew Su Jie was just saying it to please her, Lu Yingying still felt very happy, rubbing her cheek against Su Jie's hand like a cat. Take a look at what I brought back this time. Su Jie took out the blue nearsighted pill and placed it in front of Lu Yingying. What is this? Lu Yingying looked it over but couldn't figure out what it was made of. It's a nearsighted pill. As long as you swallow it, your nearsightedness will begin to improve in just 3 days, and your vision will adjust to normal levels. Didn't you say that the Jekka Group is in need of money? With this nearsighted pill, we can make a fortune and rejuvenate the Jekka Group's cash flow. Su Jie tossed the nearsighted pill in his hand and explained its effects. Really? Lu Yingying's thin eyebrows shot up in surprise, her face a mixture of nervousness, excitement, and incredulity. She knew that nearsightedness was a huge industry. Although Lu Yingying had no direct contact with it, she was aware of how lucrative those eyewear companies were. Glasses that cost very little to make sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, reaping profits from so many consumers. While Lu Yingying was not certain of the exact number of people worldwide who suffered from nearsightedness, she was aware that the modern habit of long-term use of mobile phones and computers meant that the number was certainly over 1 billion and growing every year. Many people with mild nearsightedness either did not wear glasses or used contact lenses or had undergone laser correction surgeries instead. Even if not everyone bought the nearsighted pill, just replacing glasses could create a $1 trillion supermarket for Jekka Group, assuming the nearsighted pill was as miraculous as Su Jie claimed. Lu Yingying had no reason to doubt this. She had unconditional trust in Su Jie, and with the example of Tianyuan hair growth liquid, the nearsighted pill would certainly deliver as well. Start a factory to produce these pills, and let's put them on the market to earn war funds for Jekka Group. We'll price it at $1,000 per pill and call it Tianyuan myopia pills. The price Su Jie set was well considered. Laser correction surgeries currently cost between $2,500 and $6,000. Although relatively safe, all such surgeries carry the risk of complications or side effects. These are, aside from the cost, why many people are reluctant to undergo such procedures, and others are simply unsuitable for them. The nearsighted pill, however, carries none of these concerns. People instinctively resist surgery, but taking a pill, especially one that works in just a few days, has a much higher acceptance rate. Any nearsighted person can take it. The price of the nearsighted pill is cheaper, making it highly cost-effective. It can also topple the eyeglass market and take over its substantial revenue. I'll take care of it right away. Excited, Lu Yingying hastily ran out to make it happen. The Jekka Group moved quickly, with Lu Yingying personally overseeing the production, which produced a large number of Tianyuan myopia pills in a short period. After confirming the effects, they were distributed worldwide, using the previously established sales network of Tianyuan hair growth liquid. In Georgia of the beautiful country, Renek Jaka walked the streets towards a black market venue that sold Tianyuan hair growth liquid exclusively. Renek worked at an internet company, and as everyone knows, the hair loss rate among internet enterprise employees is notoriously high. Renek himself suffered from premature balding. Back in college, he had a full head of hair, but less than 10 years into his job, he had developed a severe case of male pattern baldness. To save his head of hair, Renek naturally became a loyal customer of Tianyuan hair growth liquid, the only product that could rescue his good looks. He arrived at a more secluded street corner and, after a phone call, a Latino man walked over. "McGill, why switch the trading spot again?" As soon as they met, Renek started to complain, recognizing the guy opposite him. The man before him was named McGill, a former street thug turned smuggler of Tianyuan hair growth liquid, now doing this gig for a living. People like McGill were a dime a dozen in the beautiful country. Jekka Company distributed their products to the Tijuana Group in Mexico, who then smuggled large quantities of Tianyuan hair growth liquid into the beautiful country, handed it down to locals, often hoodlums, vagrants, and addicts, who in turn distributed it to a diverse clientele, creating a vast smuggling network. "Damn, it's those cops, always watching us. If they catch me, I've worked for nothing this week," grumbled McGill, his mouth full of obscenities. These hoodlums now relied on Tianyuan hair growth liquid to make a living and naturally had no love for the police who were out to get them. Even if they did get caught selling this stuff, they wouldn't face serious punishment and would be out in a few days. But the confiscated Tianyuan hair growth liquid was a significant loss they couldn't afford. Amidst the curses, McGill opened his jacket, lined with bottles of Tianyuan hair growth liquid. Renek was a regular customer and had bought from him numerous times. "How many bottles this time?" "Give me 3 to save the hassle." "Sure, 3 bottles." The two exchanged cash for goods, and at the end, McGill, looking at Renek's thick glasses, asked, "Almost forgot, Renek. I've got a new product here. Tianyuan myopia pills. $1,000 a pop. They can cure your nearsightedness? Wanna buy one?" Tianyuan myopia pills? What's their story? Renek pushed his glasses up, taken aback. "You can tell by the name, it's from the same company as the Tianyuan hair growth liquid, a product of the Jekka Group." McGill took out a small bottle with a blue pill inside. "You must have a high prescription, right? Swallow this Tianyuan myopia pill for 3 days, and it will cure your nearsightedness, leaving you with no need for glasses ever again." Cured in 3 days, really? Renek's mind stalled at the promised effectiveness. What kind of medicine could have such a result? "Told you, it's produced by the Jekka Group, big company, big brand, definitely trustworthy. See the Tianyuan hair growth liquid in your hand. Doesn't it start working in a week?" McGill asserted confidently, assuring there would be no problems. Renek thought, indeed, it must be another miraculous Eastern divine medicine from the Jekka Group, just like the Tianyuan hair growth liquid. With this thought, Renek hesitated before pulling out $1,000, saying, "If it doesn't work, I'm coming back for my money." "No problem. I've sold Tianyuan hair growth liquid on this block for so long, I wouldn't damage my reputation over your $1,000. The transaction was smooth, completing the first beautiful country order of Tianyuan myopia pills. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Renek's experience was quite extraordinary. After taking the Tianyuan myopia pills, the skin and muscles around his eyes felt cool and refreshing, as if wrapped with an ice pack. Initially nervous, he went to the hospital for a checkup. The eyes are too delicate, and he feared complications. But the various medical tests showed nothing wrong, and when Renek returned home, he started noticing a significant improvement in his nearsightedness the next day. On the 3rd day, the improvement became even more pronounced. On the 4th day, early in the morning, Renek instinctively still wanted to put on his glasses. However, after he put on his glasses, he found that his vision was extremely blurry. "My eyes!" Renek pushed open the window, took off his glasses, and gazed into the distance. Having myopia of 800 degrees, he used to be absolutely unable to see clearly. But now, he could even make out the license plates of cars below and the text on distant billboards. Even the men and women walking around, Renek could see their faces clearly, not like in the past when beyond a certain distance, he couldn't even tell if they were male or female. "It's over. My nearsightedness is completely cured." Renek's lips trembled with excitement as he leaped into the air. The myopia he thought would accompany him for life was completely cured with just $1,000. Tianyuan myopia pills are awesome, really amazing. This feeling of seeing clearly is so exhilarating. Renek yelled and shouted, feeling reborn, with an indescribable excitement in his heart. Taking out his phone, Renek turned his excitement into words, starting to share this joy with tens of thousands of netizens. Gradually, the news about Tianyuan myopia pills began to spread online. As more and more people with nearsightedness were cured, Tianyuan myopia pills also became hot. I recommend nearsighted patients to buy Tianyuan myopia pills. One pill and you can say goodbye to nearsightedness. They are cheap and effective. It's indeed a product of JECA Group, just like Tianyuan hair growth liquid, effective in just 3 days. No need to worry about surgical risks. Much better than corrective surgeries. Holy Mary! These Tianyuan myopia pills are simply a masterpiece from God. There's hope for me, a severe nearsighted patient. A bunch of morons. Do you even realize that JECA Group is an extreme radical organization endangering our country's security? By buying their products, you are funding the enemy. Each penny you spend turns into bullets fired at our soldiers. Bullshit? Who do you think you are? If you didn't go to Chan country, how could they shoot you? Are you also claiming Chan country as our territory? Others sell Tianyuan hair growth liquid properly, but you just have to go and pull it off the shelves, forcing me to buy smuggled Tianyuan hair growth liquid at a much higher price. Those politicians are just manipulated by capitalists. When they can't compete in business, they start to play dirty. Who doesn't understand this trick? I don't care too much anyhow. Tianyuan myopia pills are good medicine. There's nothing wrong in curing my own nearsightedness, right? If you're so patriotic, then go on accepting those expensive nearsighted surgeries. The eyeglass manufacturing company I work for has started to lay off staff. Just yesterday HR talked to me about my dismissal. I hope JECA Group gets destroyed quickly. They ruin one industry after another. Previously, the hair growth company entered a depression. Now it's our turn, the eyeglass manufacturing companies. Online, there was a buzz of controversy, and it had become a regular occurrence in the beautiful country, where netizens always had endless topics to discuss regarding how to deal with JECA Group. Online arguments aside, Tianyuan myopia pill sales were hardly affected offline, where sales kept climbing higher and higher. Not long after Tianyuan myopia pills hit the market, they almost immediately took over a large share with their miraculous effects and affordable price. Not just in the beautiful country, but JECA Group's smuggling channels had long been spread all over the world. These underground organizations in Europe and America, who had previously made a fortune off Tianyuan hair growth liquid, now had a new opportunity to make money and naturally would not reject a profitable business. The volume of Tianyuan myopia pills shipped grew ever larger, from 100,000 to 1 million, then to tens of millions. They catered to all people with nearsightedness, including men, women, the elderly, and children. With over 1 billion nearsighted patients and 200 to 300 million with high degrees of myopia worldwide, these were all potential customers for Tianyuan myopia pills. Because of this, major companies that manufactured glasses began to see a decline in sales, and related eyeglass company stocks began to fall as if they had diarrhea. When the sales of Tianyuan myopia pills broke 10 million and a celebratory announcement was made, it also meant that this new product had brought JECA Group billions of dollars in net revenue. Although Tianyuan myopia pills are a one-time purchase, the profit margins were still quite remarkable given their pricing. However, as more and more nearsighted patients were cured over time, sales could only rely on newly diagnosed nearsighted patients, meaning future profits were expected to decline. But for at least the next few years, JECA Group wouldn't have to worry about that. The existing nearsighted patients alone would provide several years' worth of exorbitant profits for the company. Facing the profits of Tianyuan myopia pills, a simple calculation would make countless businesses in the medical field green with envy. In this context, a global medical conference specifically aimed at addressing JECA Group was convened in the beautiful country. Beautiful country, New York. On January 3rd, the World Medical and Health Safety Conference was successfully held at the New York City International Convention Center. Attendees included Aster Pharmaceutical, Novartis Pharmaceuticals, Bayer Pharmaceuticals, Huerue Pharmaceutical. All the top 10 global pharmaceutical companies made their appearance. each with a market value of hundreds of billions of US dollars and annual revenues of several tens of billions of dollars, true super multinational pharmaceutical conglomerates. Countless more big and small pharmaceutical companies were in attendance as well. The majority of the world's medical companies were present. In addition to the major pharmaceutical companies, there were charitable relief organizations, representatives from medical university, renowned experts in the medical field, and legendary surgeons, to name a few. It could be said that while this medical event might not capture the attention of the general public, those in the medical field had been paying close attention to it for a long time. The conference lasted for 5 days and included a free medical treatment session for patients. The event was conducted quite smoothly until the last day of the conference. In the largest exhibition hall of the International Convention Center, as the initiator and main sponsor of this medical conference, Aster Pharmaceutical personally took the stage to speak and gathered everyone participating in the conference. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed man in his 40s, dressed in a suit and wearing gold-rimmed glasses, exuding a gentle and scholarly demeanor, stood on the stage. Good afternoon, medical experts and pharmaceutical companies. I am Pedro Avellizan, the new chairman of Aster Pharmaceutical. Pedro introduced himself with a smile. Pedro was indeed the new head of the Avellizan family, after the former head, José Avellizan, was assassinated by a super soldier sent by the JECA Group. After a fierce struggle for power and profit, it was José's third son, Pedro Avellizan, who ultimately took over as the head of the family. Today, I have called this meeting to discuss a single topic, that is, regarding certain forces that are destroying the medical environment, smuggling medical products illegally, and defying the law. The trash lurking within our industry, the JECA Group. Pedro held the microphone, his voice spreading throughout the venue through the speakers. Upon hearing the name JECA Group, many medical experts and scholars in the audience showed varying expressions. This group had recently become famous for achieving a series of victories in wars despite being targeted and blockaded by the Eight-Nation Group. But in the eyes of medical professionals, the JECA Group was the #1 pharmaceutical company in the world and was already well known to them. Whether it was Tianyuan hair growth liquid or the newly launched Tianyuan myopia pills, countless experts and institutions had conducted secret research in an attempt to understand why JECA Group's medical products were so effective and had such astonishing results. They directly addressed hair loss and myopia caused by various factors, almost like the legendary universal medicine. However, no matter how these experts and institutions studied, they could never uncover the real secret of the JECA Group. They could only find that there was a special substance in those medicines, whose synthesis and production methods were unknown to anyone. It was said that another product of the JECA Group, the strengthening pill, which allowed humans to exceed their physical limits, also contained this substance. Hence, the medical community named it the universal medicine quality. The misdeeds of the JECA Group are too numerous to document. All of you present are the most authoritative experts and professors in the medical field worldwide. Seizing this rare opportunity, I would like to propose a motion to carry out a medical blockade against the JECA Group, as well as the regions under its rule, preventing all medical equipment and medications from entering the area, so as not to contribute to their arrogance. Pedro tapped the table, finally getting to the point. This statement immediately caused an uproar among the audience. No one expected that Pedro's proposal would be so aggressive, to block the entry of JECA Group's medical products. The last country subject to a medical blockade was Cuba, which, under the name of the beautiful country, unilaterally prohibited Cuba from purchasing medical equipment and supplies. It also made it difficult for Cuban medical workers to obtain visas from other countries, preventing them from participating in top-level academic exchanges and understanding advanced medical technologies and future research directions, seriously hindering Cuba's potential for the continued development of medicine. The region now under the rule of the JECA Group had a population of over 10 million who heavily depended on medical equipment and medications. Such a blockade would inevitably lead to a shortage of essential medical supplies for patients, resulting in various medical treatment issues and causing a significant and far-reaching impact. Many prominent figures in the medical industry below exchanged looks, and many had already realized that the true purpose of Aster Pharmaceuticals' medical conference was probably aimed at the JECA Group. Mr. Pedro, we are merely medical institutions, and we have no right, nor should we, to carry out a medical blockade against any group or region. This is inhuman and disregards life. We, as doctors, have a duty to heal the sick and save lives. Such actions go against our principles and would be tantamount to sacrificing the lives of over 10 million people governed by the JECA Group. I am firmly opposed. A leader in the field of life sciences stood up, his eyes stern, his voice raised, and he angrily rebuked Pedro. That's right. Such a despicable act is simply smearing all of us in the medical industry. To block the medical equipment and drug inputs of a region, how is that different from what robbers do? This is no longer the work of white-coated angels, but of black-winged demons. One after another, people stood up. There were always those righteous individuals who, for the sake of justice, dared to confront Aster Pharmaceutical without giving any face to this global top 10 pharmaceutical company. Of course, many of them were industry leaders, representative figures in their respective medical fields, whom Aster Pharmaceutical could not afford to offend. However, in the vast exhibition hall, those who stood up to explicitly express opposition were just a minority of a minority. More people remained seated, watching the progress of events without taking a stance. Pedro's expression remained unchanged as he spoke into the microphone. I can understand everyone's feelings. It pains me to make such a proposal, but... Pedro raised his voice and gestured with his arms, stirring up emotions. But look at what JECA Group has done. They've smuggled Tianyuan hair growth liquid and Tianyuan myopia pills to obtain black gold, then intensified the persecution of people under their rule, disrupted the political situation in Chan country, and conducted evil biochemical gene research. Their so-called super soldiers are evidence. According to rumors, for every super soldier that is created, there are 99 unseen human experiment failures that die, cruelly discarded by the JECA Group. How can we continue to enable a company that lacks humanity, moral boundaries, and medical order? And I'm not planning to block them forever. As long as JECA Group is willing to comply with medical field regulations, register new drugs and patents through international approvals, and commit to not conducting any more biochemical experiments, we will naturally lift the blockade. The exhibition hall grew somewhat quiet until a blond, blue-eyed man stood up. When everyone looked over, they immediately recognized him as the CEO of Huerue Pharmaceutical, Renzo Benavides. Renzo held the microphone and locked eyes with Pedro on the stage, saying, I represent Huerue Pharmaceutical, and I agree with Mr. Pedro's proposal. The illegal human experiments of the JECA Group and their persecution of people around the world must be sanctioned to make clear to them that their unchecked illegal activities will eventually backfire. Following Renzo's lead, a woman in her 50s also stood up beside him. She was the CEO of Bayer Pharmaceuticals, Marina Setis. As a responsible and committed pharmaceutical company, I cannot ignore the despicable actions of the JECA Group. I declare that Bayer Pharmaceuticals and all its partners will impose medical sanctions and a blockade against the JECA Group. We will lift the blockade once the JECA Group offers an apology and makes amends. The representative of Novartis Pharmaceuticals stood up next, sternly saying, if JECA Group does not want the medical care in its region to be blockaded, please show sincerity soon, disband the human experiment labs, and ensure the drug patents are properly registered. Only then will the international community choose to accept you. One after another, pharmaceutical companies stood up, the global top 10 pharmaceutical companies without exception. Their combined market value was even greater than that of the world's largest company, and their influence was unmatched. After all, the field of medicine had long penetrated every aspect of human society. Who could say they would never fall ill in their lifetime? The attendees at the conference were shocked, their eyes wide open. These pharmaceutical companies had always been fiercely competing with one another, and it was unexpected to see such a united front. Now, it was even clearer that these giant pharmaceutical companies had already reached an agreement in private to blockade JECA Group. Today's gathering was just a formality to make it public. More and more pharmaceutical companies stood up. Too many enterprises were connected upstream and downstream with these multinational giants, and in order not to be given a hard time, they had no choice but to go with the flow and stand in support. In virtually no time at all, The prevailing mood at the scene had become one-sided, beginning to publicly denounce JECA Group. This left many of the righteous individuals who had spoken up for JECA Group quite frustrated. But their personal power was far from comparable to these influential giants whose influence permeated every country and whose annual revenue was in the range of billions of dollars. Moreover, it was a monumental effort for the world's top 10 pharmaceutical companies to join forces, an unprecedented endeavor that was beyond the reach of any individual's modest power. Pedro's face showed a faint smile. He had only recently become the head of the Averson family, and many within the family opposed him. But if he could suppress the JECA Group and obtain the miraculous universal medicine quality they possessed, surely he would be able to produce various universal medicines and gain a massive fortune, truly solidifying his position. That's why Pedro had this idea to reach out to other giant pharmaceutical companies. In the face of the huge benefits of universal medicine quality, these otherwise fiercely competing companies reluctantly came together to form such an agreement. As for avenging his father, Jose, that was never something Pedro seriously considered. His actions were entirely motivated by self-interest. Before deciding to stand out, Pedro had also strengthened his own security measures. Spending his days in seclusion was designed to guard against JECA Group sending super soldiers to assassinate him, avoiding the fate of the old man. It seems we all share a heroic consensus. Following the principle of the minority yielding to the majority, I hereby declare that the medical equipment and drug embargo against JECA Group will officially commence after the conclusion of this conference. As Pedro's words concluded, applause suddenly began to sound from below, initially sparse but then growing louder and louder until it was deafening. Quickly, news spread from New York and, as it was carried across oceans by the media, exploded around the world. When the medical ban in beautiful country had just been announced, on the other side of the ocean, Monday City was still in a state of peace and prosperity. In a newly constructed film and television base in the suburbs of Monday City, Kitagawa Ayaka, who had been invited here by the JECA Group, was shivering with fear. Kitagawa Ayaka was a Japanese actress, the kind with little fame who sometimes had to work part-time jobs to cover living expenses that her acting career could not support. This clearly showed how obscure Kitagawa Ayaka really was. A week ago, she had suddenly heard that a wealthy film crew was recruiting for a big-budget movie that required shooting overseas. Struggling financially, she had not thought twice before signing up. The selection process had gone smoothly, and she had even landed an important role as the leading lady, so excited that she could not sleep the entire night. Initially, she had doubted whether this so-called big production team was a scam until she saw Shitsuen Ing, a director well known for his horror films in Japan. Moreover, part of her lead actress salary had already been deposited, amounting to much more than what she would have earned for a supporting role in any of her previous films. All these factors completely dispelled her doubts, and she confidently followed the production team overseas, first flying to Hua Country and then taking a connecting flight to Monday City. Upon disembarking, she was utterly bewildered because the people greeting them were all fully armed soldiers. At that moment, the entire chartered planes team, from the director to the actors and crew, was dumbfounded. At first, Kitagawa Ayaka thought that their big production team had been kidnapped, a common occurrence in foreign lands where local gangs extort film crews. It wasn't until she saw that the financiers of the big production team were all happily greeting and chatting with the soldiers that she finally realized. It was only they, the team members from Japan, who were kept in the dark. Confused, Kitagawa Ayaka, along with the crew, was taken to a hotel in the city by the soldiers, who weren't closely guarding them. Initially, some crew members tried to escape, but what was despairing was that it seemed like everywhere in the city was under surveillance by those soldiers. No matter where they ran, they would be immediately captured upon trying to leave the city. Later, they learned that the place they had landed was called Monday City, which had an even more notorious reputation well known to every Japanese, known as JECA Group's lair, referred to by the Japanese as the Demon's Den. When Kitagawa Ayaka learned that they had been kidnapped by the JECA Group, she cried bitterly. Because in the propaganda in Japan, the JECA Group was always portrayed as evil, cold-blooded killers who persecuted innocent civilians. In contrast, Japanese soldiers who went to Chan country were there to ensure the safety of the local civilians on a humanitarian rescue mission, yet were shamefully ambushed and defeated by the unscrupulous Jeka group, which many in Japan deeply resented. Kitagawa Ayaka thought the same until she later took part in an escape attempt. During her escape in Mande City, she realized that the local civilians were not living in misery as the Japanese government had propagated, starving and dying of hunger. Instead, the local people were living orderly lives, looking healthy and vibrant, and were extremely supportive of the Jeka group. Most of the time, the failures of Kitagawa Ayaka's escape attempts were due to these civilians reporting them. Kitagawa Ayaka finally delved deeper and realized that most people in Mande City work directly or indirectly for Jeka Group. Wherever they went, there were employees of Jeka Group, just ordinary people, not professional agents or scouts. How could they escape? Later on, the entire crew became docile, prayed that Jeka Group wouldn't kill them, and they were then assigned a task to prepare to shoot a horror film. When they heard about this assignment, everyone was a bit stunned. So all this trouble to bring them to Mande City was indeed to have them shoot a movie. This shock remained to this day. Kitagawa Ayaka could only enhance her acting skills by studying the script, to avoid being taken out for target practice by Jeka Group if she performed poorly. Is everyone here? Lighting, how is this reflector set up? Hurry up and adjust it. The camera track is not in the right position. Move half a meter to the left. Prop master. Director Shitsuen Ing, holding a megaphone, started preparing for the shooting. Ayaka, come over here. You understand all the scenes you are going to play, right? Shitsuen Ing beckoned to Kitagawa Ayaka. Director, I've read the script many times, but I have never acted in a horror film before. I'm afraid I can't master the right expression of fear. Kitagawa Ayaka said timidly. She wasn't a genius, and although she believed her acting was competent, not being recognized was not her fault. But she had indeed never acted in a horror film and feared she couldn't display its essence. We are about to start shooting soon. If your acting isn't good, I'll guide you then. Shitsuen Ing, holding a walkie-talkie, continued arranging other shooting tasks. Just as everything was wrapping up and he was about to take a drink, Kitagawa Ayaka handed him a cup of warm water in a paper cup. Thanks. Shitsuen Ing gulped it down in one go, wiped his mouth and said with a smile, I didn't expect this, Ayaka. You are quite observant. You'll make it big one day. Kitagawa Ayaka felt a bit bashful and, seeing Shitsuen Ing's seriousness and passion for the shooting work, couldn't help but ask curiously, Director, aren't you afraid? Afraid of what? Shitsuen Ing looked puzzled. I mean, this is Jeka Group, the heartless Jeka Group. Aren't you afraid they might do something to you? Kitagawa Ayaka's expression was exaggerated, gesticulating wildly. Shitsuen Ing lit a cigarette and said blandly, Don't be fooled by the propaganda back home. Jeka Group isn't as bad as you think. If it were as you said, wouldn't all of you who tried to run away so many times have been shot by now? Kitagawa Ayaka was at a loss for words, not knowing how to counter. When I was shooting back home last time, because of being overly confident, I invested all my savings into my own movie, but that movie bombed and I ended up heavily in debt. I really didn't know before coming here, but later the Jeka Group helped me deal with those involved in high-interest loans in Hua country. Otherwise, I can't imagine what would have happened to my family, he said as he exhaled rings of smoke, his words tinged with melancholy and gratitude. Kitagawa Ayaka opened her mouth hesitantly. But they tricked us into coming here mysteriously and even restricted our personal freedom. You're not losing any money, and besides, this shoot is a huge production with top-level setup. I heard that they plan to make this movie into a series. By then, you probably won't want to leave. Shitsuen Ing replied with a chuckle. Kitagawa Ayaka was startled and asked puzzledly, What's the reason? Shitsuen Ing prompted, Think carefully. Didn't you post online cursing the Jeka Group? I haven't. Well, it seems I actually did, but that was ages ago, she admitted, her voice growing weaker. She had followed the crowd and criticized Jeka Group as an evil force online, suggesting it should be banned. Hee. Everyone brought here, including me, has cursed the Jeka Group. With a final note, Shitsuen Ing did not add anything more. Kitagawa Ayaka stood frozen, and after realizing, she felt a strong impulse to slap herself. What was I thinking back then? Who could have suspected that JECA Group would seek revenge in such a manner? Half an hour later, the first scene of the first act officially started. The scene involved Kitagawa Ayaka, where she encounters the female ghost for the first time. Filming was not done in chronological order but rather based on the setup, meaning later parts might be filmed first. Kitagawa Ayaka lay in her bed, within the confines of her bedroom, which was only equipped with fixed multi-camera setups, and no other objects. She was to act as a girl who had found a death envelope during the day, opened it out of curiosity, and was cursed. Tonight would be her first experience encountering the ghost due to the curse. Peeking out from under her covers, Kitagawa Ayaka eyed the eerily quiet surroundings, wondering if the female ghost would truly be frightening. What if the makeup was so bad that she burst out laughing? That would definitely earn her a scolding from the director. Her mind was filled with wild thoughts when suddenly, a slight clicking sound came from the bedroom door. Kitagawa Ayaka instinctively looked over, and just then, the bedroom lights began to flicker as if due to a poor connection. A chill permeated the air through the door crack, and in the flickering light, Kitagawa Ayaka's vision blurred for a moment. It seemed as if the door had been opened halfway and a ghostly figure stood outside, its face unclear, only its sinister, hollow eyes visible, as if staring at someone about to die. Goosebumps covered Kitagawa Ayaka's arms, and a chill spread throughout her body as she clung to the blanket, only her eyes peeking out, fearful as she glanced toward the door, continually reminding herself it was all just actors and mechanisms. But even with such reassurances, the panic inside her surged like a tide, overwhelming her sanity. Snap! The lights flickered back on, and the shadow at the door seemed to vanish. Kitagawa Ayaka hesitantly reached out with her left hand to press the bedside lamp. As the lamp lit up, no one was outside the door. It was just a stretch of haunting silence. But as soon as Kitagawa Ayaka turned off the lamp again, a slender figure clad in red reappeared at the door. Kitagawa Ayaka shuddered and instinctively turned on the light, and the ghostly figure disappeared again. Upon turning the lamp off, the figure reappeared yet again. Turning on the light made the ghostly figure at the door vanish once more. Kitagawa Ayaka was utterly terrified, her face rigid with horror and sweat dripping down as she curled up under the covers, resembling a caterpillar. Snap! The lamp was turned off once more. Ah! The next second, Kitagawa Ayaka let out an ear-piercing scream, because she saw the red-clothed ghostly figure, which had been at the door, suddenly appear right beside her bed, its red head covering obscuring its face, leaving only a silent terror that swept through her soul. With a swift movement, Kitagawa Ayaka buried her head into the covers, her fear bringing her to tears. Underneath the covers, the bed frame was concave, and a camera was positioned perfectly to capture Kitagawa Ayaka's frightened expression, pushing her to the brink of collapse. Just then, Kitagawa Ayaka felt as if something had touched her shoulder. She slightly turned her head and saw a pale hand resting on her shoulder, and through the covers, she could vaguely discern a terrifying presence staring at her with a deathly gaze. This horrifying scene had made Kitagawa Ayaka's eyes widen in terror, prompting her to throw off the covers and flee the bedroom without looking back. Cut! Perfect! Just perfect! Shitsuining exclaimed excitedly outside. Are all young people so humble these days? Saying she couldn't act out fear, yet her acting skills exploded. Not only does she stand out among her peers, but even if some of those veteran actors were here, few could display such a demeanor. After a while, Kitagawa Ayaka came running out, crying her eyes out, tears falling on the spot. All right, Ayaka. That's enough. No need to act anymore. Tone down your expression. Director Shitsuining walked over and patted Kitagawa Ayaka on the shoulder, quite pleased with her performance. Ah, act. What acting? I wasn't acting. There really is a ghost. Ayaka looked bewildered, insisting she had truly been scared. Look, all you actors come over here and see what true acting is, completely immersing oneself in the character. An actor like this will sooner or later become famous. Shitsuining was even more satisfied upon hearing this, leaving Kitagawa Ayaka at a loss for words. The surrounding actors who were watching turned their gaze toward Kitagawa Ayaka. Many of the supporting actors had previously been a bit jealous and resentful, wondering why Kitagawa Ayaka, a nobody, had landed the lead role. Now, seeing Kitagawa Ayaka's impressive acting skills, each of them could only admit they were outclassed. There truly were mountains beyond mountains and skies beyond skies. At that moment, Kitagawa Ayaka finally gathered her wits and asked, swallowing hard, who was the actress playing the female ghost just now? That was someone arranged by the Jeka group, apparently a big shot, not from our crew. Come on, now let's shoot the next scene. Shitsuining cheerfully continued with the filming. However, when the supporting actors began acting in scenes with the fierce ghost, things often spiraled beyond Shitsuining's control. One by one, the actors, when shooting scenes with the fierce ghost, managed to perform exceptionally well in terms of fear, but too much of anything is bad. Many actors were so terrified they lost their composure and couldn't even recite their lines, with some even crying and wanting to go to the police. Faced with this situation, Shitsuining, after failing to console several actors, had no choice but to approach the actress playing the fierce ghost. As he drew near, Shitsuining felt a chill running through his body. Miss Han, I'm the director Shitsuining. There's something I need to ask of you. Shitsuining swallowed hard, standing beside Han Ruyan, his brain sounding alarms, and his instincts urging him to flee. What is it? My performance wasn't convincing. Han Ruyan's eyes, behind her sunglasses, conveyed such a sense of dread, akin to that of a fierce ghost reaping lives, that Shitsuining immediately stepped back, sweat breaking out on his forehead. No, I mean, Miss Han, you're acting too convincingly. It would be great if you could tone it down a bit. Otherwise my actors can't perform properly. Stammering out his lines, Shitsuining finally understood why his actors had depicted their fear so vividly. The woman playing the female ghost unnerved him deeply. The ominous and dangerous aura she emitted caused his heart to race uncontrollably, much like encountering a natural predator. I'll go down and control it. Han Ruyan gave Shitsuining a glance, and like finding redemption, he quickly made himself scarce. In the following shots, Han Ruyan voluntarily reduced her presence, still scaring the actors pale, but at least they managed to deliver their lines, and filming could continue. After the last scene of the day was shot, outside the crew area, Sujie sat on a lounge chair and smiled at the approaching ghost bride Han Ruyan, asking, how did it feel filming just now? Scaring ordinary people without stepping on the ants or harming them is harder to control than just killing outright. Han Ruyan's voice was icy cold. Her wedding dress fluttered gently in the wind, and her phoenix crown shone even more brightly. Sujie could tell that Han Ruyan wasn't objecting, which meant she was not resistant to acting. After all, the more fear they left in the audience after the movie's release, the more primordial spirit pearls they would collect. In such a case, Han Ruyan taking action personally was naturally more effective at maximizing the fear experienced by the audience than sending out papermen and fierce ghosts. Once the movie is released, the effort now will be worth it. The filming team we've got this time will do their utmost to help you with the shooting. Sujie grasped Han Ruyan's hand. Horror films shot in Japan were known to be unique in Asia for their psychological terror and sense of oppression, something that horror films from Europe and America struggled to match. For this reason, Sujie had deliberately brought in Shitsuining's professional team to create a truly terrifying horror film, combining a Japanese script that excelled in psychological horror with the ghost bride's devoted performance. The film-going audience was sure to be in for a treat. He hoped they'd come to the theaters equipped with diapers. When will it be released? Han Ruyan asked a question. Film shooting and production will take a few months, and we're still in the process of acquiring and investing in more theaters, which also takes time. Sujie shook his head. Film production can't be rushed. Industrialized movie production isn't like the old guerrilla days where a film finished in a few days or a week would find an audience. Then I'll go back to Nightmare Park. Han Ruyan didn't say much else. Acting in a movie was merely a pastime, a form of entertainment for her, and that was after she had regained some human emotions. Had it been the Han Ruyan of the past, she may not have been willing to personally participate in the filming. Su Jie stood up to see Han Ruyan back to Nightmare Park. The place was becoming increasingly desolate. The war between Jekka Group and the Chan Country government army had not ended, with both sides merely replenishing their logistics under a tacit ceasefire. As a result, tourists were scarce, leaving the once bustling Grand Ghost House with only a few visitors, mostly adventurous online bloggers who came to experience what was touted as the world's largest ghost house, aiming to shoot videos to attract traffic to their websites. In the architectural compound that mimicked the antique Su-style garden, Su Jie led Han Ruyan into the place. "Then I'll leave first." Just as Su Jie turned to leave, a small hand caught him. Turning around, he saw Han Ruyan gently parting her red lips. "Come in and sit." Su Jie was somewhat bewildered, but he followed her inside nonetheless. Inside the mansion, lights and decorations adorned every corner, many laid out just as Han Mansion had been when Han Ruyan was alive. At a pavilion, Han Ruyan slightly raised her head and said, "My parents, they must have died right around here, right? My father hanged himself here, and my mother was hung at this place." Han Ruyan's voice was as detached as always. Su Jie couldn't detect much fluctuation in it. "You remembered?" Su Jie was somewhat surprised. Han Ruyan's demeanor clearly indicated that she had recalled many things from her life. "After killing Zhou Minzhen, I intermittently get flashes in my mind. My parents died at his hands." Han Ruyan spoke slowly, then turned to look at Su Jie. "Thank you, my husband." Su Jie shook his head, saying, "Why thank me? As your husband, isn't it my duty to help my wife avenge her deep-seated hatred?" Han Ruyan's brows furrowed slightly. She looked down at herself and said, "Deep-seated hatred, my husband, why can't I feel much sorrow? The only person I seem to care about now is you. Even if there's only me, your husband will always love you." Su Jie touched Han Ruyan's icy jade-like face. Although he couldn't feel body warmth, he seemed to grasp Han Ruyan's complex and indescribable state of mind through this gesture. Normally, one would be greatly distressed and unable to suppress their grief if their parents were killed and their family destroyed. But Han Ruyan had become a fierce ghost and lost so many human emotions. She knew she should be grieving, but she was unable to empathize, even unsure of how to grieve and mourn, making such emotional perception overly burdensome for her. "My husband." The blood-colored wedding dress on Han Ruyan fluttered, winding around Su Jie's waist. The chilling cold of the fierce ghost began to seep in. Su Jie's primordial spirit reacted instinctively, like how human adrenaline surges in the face of danger. Two authoritative eyes on the primordial spirit opened, their divine radiance illuminating the nine nether, dispelling evil filth. However, the next moment, Su Jie controlled the instinctive reaction of his primordial spirit and opened his arms to embrace Han Ruyan in her blood-colored wedding dress. Threads and wisps of blood-red light spread between them. Su Jie's body remained unchanged, but atop the divine soul emerged a blood-red cape that slowly materialized behind the primordial spirit. The primordial spirit automatically leapt out from atop Su Jie's head, and with a gust of wind, the red cape rustled. Whoosh! Invisible ripples spread out, the primordial spirit standing like a divine god. As its red cape billowed slightly, the ground cracking inch by inch. Nearby small animals and insects were instantaneously felled, their souls utterly extinguished. Dual soul contract. Su Jie murmured to himself. The so-called dual soul contract was a deep binding between humans and fierce ghosts. This binding was somewhat similar to the relationship Su Jie had with the thousand-hand centipede, his life-bound poisonous insect. Dual soul contracts were extremely rare and usually, only one fierce ghost could be bound. After binding, this contract would strengthen Su Jie's primordial spirit, bestowing various divine abilities and greatly increasing its power. Zhong Shiguan had established a dual soul contract with the Mirror Girl, which allowed him, after his physical death, to take possession of the mirror girl's body with his human consciousness, controlling it. As Han Rian now had established a dual soul contract with Su Jie, this also meant that Han Rian truly opened her heart to Su Jie, with no defenses whatsoever. The primordial spirit soared high into the sky, barely visible. The next moment, dark clouds gathered, thunder roared, lightning snakes flashed. The divine skill of purple cloud heavenly thunder originated from the primordial spirit, and as the primordial spirit strengthened, it also drew upon natural phenomena. A violent wind arose, and a downpour began, with the sound of thunder rolling, starting a heavy rain. Strange, it was scorching a moment ago, but this rain came so suddenly. This is sun shower, when it's raining while the sun is out. It's only raining near Nightmare Park. There's no rain in other areas. Passers-by nearby were astonished. As they looked for shelter from the rain, they noticed the sun brightly shining above, while the relentless rain fell, covering only a small area around Nightmare Park. These passers-by had no idea that the heavy rain was entirely caused by a human being. To leverage human form to manipulate changes in the weather, such as the might of the Taoist platform realm. Su Jie's mouth was slightly ajar, his heart shaking with amazement. This was a phenomenon-level hallmark of the Taoist platform realm. My heart as the heart of heaven. The waxing and waning of one's mood could cause synchronous changes in the weather. This was possible because the primordial spirit of the Taoist platform realm had evolved to the God unification stage, where it was the same size as the physical body and perfectly merged with it. Su Jie had never imagined that the dual soul contract he had bound with Han Ruyan would allow his primordial spirit to advance to such a level. This state could truly be called the small God union realm. Although the celestial phenomena induced by this realm were more for show and did not possess truly powerful might, incomparable to the heavenly might of the Taoist platform realm. Yet, to achieve this right after advancing to the secret realm was already an exaggeration beyond belief. Looking again at Han Ruyan, she was merely watching Su Jie quietly, as if nothing had happened. Is this a gift from my lady? Su Jie's primordial spirit returned to his body, and he took Han Ruyan into his arms. My lord, do you not like it? Han Ruyan, held by Su Jie, looked steadily into his eyes. How could I not like it? Even if you gave me a blade of grass or a stone, your husband would cherish it immensely. Su Jie planted a gentle kiss, and Han Ruyan did not resist. After their lips parted, Han Ruyan asked with a calm expression, My lord, could it be this is what men call sweet nothings? This isn't sweet nothings. This is love. Su Jie began to explain. Although his initial binding with Han Ruyan had been due to a combination of coincidences, he couldn't deny that after getting to know her, his relationship with Han Ruyan had long transcended mere exploitation. By the way, where did you learn to talk like that? There's a lot of it in movies. Those men often talk like that, but some of them, after sweet-talking, will abandon their wives. My lord, you wouldn't do that, would you? Han Ruyan's lips parted slightly, breathing in Su Jie's scent. She said very assuredly, But it's all right. If my lord were to do that, I would turn you into a fierce ghost. That way, we could always be together, forever, and no one could take my lord away from me. Whoosh! Hearing such a Yandra statement, Su Jie's expression froze for a moment, detecting the scent of a kitchen cleaver on Han Ruyan. Why are you looking at me like that? Could it be, my lord, you? Han Ruyan seemed to sense the change in Su Jie's body and tightened her embrace. Su Jie coughed twice and waved his hands. What are you talking about, my lady? I'm not that kind of man. I would never abandon a woman after causing chaos. At the same time, Su Jie silently added to himself, You're all a part of my harem. I would never toy with and then discard anyone. I always feel like my lord is hiding something. It had to be said, even as a fierce ghost, a woman's intuition could still be so terrifying. You're overthinking it, my lady, Su Jie said earnestly. Also, my lady, you should watch fewer of those messy movies in the future. I'm afraid they'll have a bad influence on you. Really? Absolutely. After leaving Han Ruyan's residence, Su Jie sighed to himself. Thank goodness I didn't introduce Ying to her. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Su Jie wasn't afraid for himself, but Lu Yingying was just an ordinary person, and if Han Ruyan saw her as a rival, the consequences would be very bad. Just as Su Jie thought of Lu Yingying, his phone rang. Picking it up, it was indeed her calling. After picking up and listening for a few sentences, Su Jie's expression gradually turned grim. Heh, it seems they really can't sit idle for a day without stirring up trouble, medical embargo. It looks like it's time to remind them of the fear of being under the control of the steel camp. In the meeting room of JECA Group headquarters building, Su Jie, Lu Yingying, and Chen Yaoguang were sitting together. Russell. Su Jie closed the file and spoke indifferently. The situation is clear now. Aster Pharmaceutical, in collaboration with the top 10 pharmaceutical companies, want to force us to give up some of our profits through an embargo. Chen Yaoguang spoke up. Mr. Su, most of the drugs and medical equipment in our controlled regions depend on imports. They are using this as leverage, aiming to leave us without any medical supplies. We can purchase from Hua country and Bear country, as these two nations don't care about any medical sanctions. Lu Yingying stated the facts. JECA Group is not like Cuba, which is too close to beautiful country and is even called the backyard of beautiful country, illustrating the immense influence of geopolitical factors. Cuba finds it hard to defy the will of beautiful country. However, JECA Group is different. Its territory is miles away from beautiful country, and the surrounding nations don't completely obey it, not to mention Hua country and Bear country, who often oppose beautiful country. These are places where JECA Group could procure medical devices and drugs. The problem is that while most drugs have substitutes, there are some drugs for which only pharmaceutical companies in Europe and America hold the patents to manufacture the specific treatments. Even Hua country and brother Mao Xiong rely on imports and cannot meet all our needs. Lu Yingying was not blindly optimistic and quickly pointed out another issue. Europe and America lead in the pharmaceutical sector, and for some medical conditions, only the specific drugs produced by pharmaceutical companies in Europe and America can be effective. This quasi-invisible monopoly also symbolizes the dominance of Western pharmaceutical companies. India should be able to supply them. They are not much affected by these limitations, but we fear those pharmaceutical companies might interfere due to their substantial influence, he said. Chen Yaoguang suggested purchasing drugs from India. Unlike most countries that adhere to the pharmaceutical patent laws, India doesn't regard such laws at all, having enacted specific legislation that legitimizes generic drugs. Of all the nations in the world, India is the only one bold enough to do this, which has led to a rampant proliferation of generic drugs within the country. Instead of buying generic drugs from India, why don't we go a step further and start producing and selling our own generic drugs? Su Jie crossed his arms under his chin and smirked as he voiced his idea. Us creating generic drugs? But the patents. Chen Yaoguang instinctively felt uneasy. However, after thinking it over, it seemed feasible. JECA Group truly had both the capability and the strength to do so. If those pharmaceutical companies are not playing by the rules, then why should we adhere to the 20-year drug patent protection laws they've set up? Lu Yingying's eyes lit up, strongly agreeing with Su Jie's idea. As is well known, drugs are mainly divided into patented drugs and generic drugs. Patented drugs are those that first filed for patent protection. For a period of 20 years, other companies are not allowed to produce generics. This period is taken into account for pharmaceutical companies to independently develop new drugs, a process that involves extensive experimentation and high R&D costs, typically averaging over a decade before success is achieved. This protection period is intended to allow pharmaceutical companies to recuperate their investments and make profits, thus motivating them to invest in developing new drugs. As for generic drugs, they not only lack significant R&D costs but also their efficacy is nearly comparable to that of the original patented drugs. Therefore, they are priced much lower than the expensively developed patented drugs, making them more affordable and preferred by the majority of patients. The reason generic drugs are scarce is that most countries have joined the World Trade Organization and thus must adhere to related patent laws. Otherwise, in today's economy integrated into global markets, a country could find itself in an isolated and unsupported position. Even if some national forces wanted to take risks, they couldn't withstand the pressure and strikes from pharmaceutical companies. India could develop generic drugs due to many complex factors. As for JECA Group developing generic drugs, just as Su Jie said, there was no difficulty at all. JECA Group itself started with smuggling, never expecting to engage in normal commerce in Europe and America. Its global smuggling network was one of the foundations that enabled JECA Group to develop generic drugs. As for the pressure and suppression from the pharmaceutical companies due to the development of generic drugs, they were already experiencing it. Moreover, the entire JECA Group was already ostracized by the beautiful country led by Europe and America, and was now in a stage of warlike stalemate, having long been in an irreconcilable relationship. Even without producing generic drugs, they would not be accepted by European and American societies. Having produced generic drugs, the relationship could not worsen much further. There was little room for decline. Consequently, the natural choice was to develop generic drugs, which was more beneficial for JECA Group. Not only could they directly break the medical blockade imposed by European and American pharmaceutical companies on JECA Group, but they could also further introduce generic drugs into the European and American circles, disrupting their ecosystem, a double victory. With our equipment, producing generic drugs is not difficult. We can just use those most vile criminals as guinea pigs. Since those consumables are just lying around anyway, might as well put them to use. Su Jie finalized the decision with a definitive strike of the hammer. I will take charge of this matter when I return. Lu Yingying nodded. JECA Group's scientific research capability was indeed very strong, with high remuneration attracting many talents, making duplication easy. After all, the truly difficult part of drug development is the stage of developing new drugs. For generic drugs, it only requires obtaining the original drugs and using various high-polymer instruments to analyze the chemical components of the drugs, then making the corresponding formulations. While different production processes may lead to slight differences in drug properties, the effects are essentially similar. Moreover, the price can be completely floored, as there are no high research and development costs to spread, making the costs quite low indeed. The meeting soon adjourned, and Su Jie picked up his phone. General Su. A robust and strong voice came through the phone. It was Miao Luan, commander of the steel camp. Have you received the new operation order? Received. Eliminate all key members of the Averson family, the puppet masters behind Aster Pharmaceutical. Get ready. Depart at the scheduled time. I will have a special entity assist you with this mission. Understood. Please rest assured, General. Steel Camp guarantees the completion of the mission. After hanging up the phone, Su Jie stood up from his seat, looking out through the glass curtain wall at the sunset's afterglow, his expression cold as he said, Time and again you provoke us. This time, I'll let you know on what JECA Group thrives. For Su Jie, producing generic drugs was merely a bureaucratic struggle, while the deployment of the steel camp was a battle of force. One in writing, one in warfare, complementing each other, that was the style of JECA Group. Without making an example of someone, those capitalists might really think JECA Group couldn't wield a knife anymore. When the top 10 pharmaceutical companies started to enforce a medical blockade on JECA Group, the media went into a frenzy, reporting wildly before rushing to interview the JECA Group. You should know that the last time JECA Group faced criticisms from the 8-nation group regarding arms purchases, they had made threats in a press conference, cautioning all to heed their warnings. Latterly, JECA Group did as they had said, using the excuse of the disappearance of training soldiers to provoke the Chan Country War, leaving the Chan Country government army and Japanese soldiers in a disarray. That instance of media coverage had satisfied news outlets around the world, and naturally they wanted to see how JECA Group would respond this time, whether they would choose to concede or stand their ground. And indeed, JECA Group didn't disappoint them, promptly calling for a press conference. January 8th. At the JECA Group headquarters building in Monday City, hundreds of journalists from around the world gathered, signing in at the first-floor lobby before taking their cameras to the fourth-floor conference hall that could accommodate 1,000 people. The media were from all around the world, including the 4 renowned international news agencies, Associated Press, Reuters, AFP, and United Press International. Besides them, there were Global Times, Time Warner, Asahi News, Truth Newspaper, Sun Newspaper, and other famous news outlets. none of whom missed the chance to come to Monday City. When it was 10 in the morning, Su Jie personally attended the press conference. I am Su Jie, the chairman of JECA Group. I think everyone here recognizes me, and I will not introduce myself further to avoid any suspicion of self-promotion, lest someone sees it and accuses me of false advertising again. Su Jie made a small joke and sat down on the chair. Many journalists couldn't help but admire below. Truly a bold figure who dares to confront the eight-nation group head-on. Even at such a time, he could still joke around, a quality not everyone possesses. Now I announce the press conference has officially begun. I will start with the journalist in front, the one from Associated Press. Please go ahead. Su Jie pointed to a man in a suit who stood up with a microphone and said, "The top 10 multinational pharmaceutical companies have announced that due to a series of humanitarian disasters caused by JECA Group, they will enforce a medical blockade on JECA Group, blocking all medical supplies from entering regions under JECA Group's control. They have stated that unless JECA Group publicly apologizes and accepts responsibility, taking several corrective measures, they might consider lifting the blockade depending on the performance." How does JECA Group view this? What are these top 10 pharmaceutical companies to demand an apology from our JECA Group? Su Jie contemptuously curled his lips and said lightly, "Regarding the so-called medical blockade, our JECA Group has decided to immediately lift the restrictions on our pharmaceutical patent laws and begin research on generic drugs. We will not only provide affordable and effective generic drugs to our people but also offer life-saving medicine to people around the world who suffer from high drug prices. Look, a company like JECA Group, which considers the welfare of its people, how could it possibly cause humanitarian disasters?" As soon as Su Jie spoke, the room erupted. Many journalists widened their eyes. Su Jie indeed boldly claimed to start researching generic drugs, completely disregarding the global top 10 pharmaceutical companies and challenging the existing rule of the game, overturning the table outright. By researching generic drugs, isn't JECA Group afraid of isolating itself from the international community? The Associated Press journalist couldn't help asking, an action he had not anticipated. Were we ever accepted by the so-called Western international community? Su Jie retorted, instantly leaving the Associated Press journalist speechless. JECA Group was defined as an extreme radical organization. The attitude of Europe and America was obvious. In any case, we JECA Group are committed to producing generic drugs. If India can do it, why can't we, JECA Group? This lady journalist, your turn. Su Jie pointed to another female journalist from Japan's Yomiuri Shimbun. The Japanese female journalist stood up, speaking sternly. At the United Nations Security Council meeting held on January 5th, the major multinational pharmaceutical companies have submitted relevant evidence and grievances. Currently, many members of the Security Council, including the beautiful country, England, the French Republic, Canada, a total of 24 countries have stood up, openly demanding an explanation about the rumors of JECA Company, under your flag, conducting human biochemical experiments. Su Jie chuckled lightly, spreading his hands out, and said, "Slander. This is pure slander against our JECA Group. We have never conducted such human experiments. This is just another attempt to smear our JECA Group." Below, a group of journalists were speechless. Do you take us all for blind? Those super soldiers beyond human limits, along with the existence of Steel Camp, are we all deaf and blind? Isn't this genetic modification? What's the deal with your super soldiers? Do you dare to let international teams enter various laboratories under JECA Group for inspection? The Japanese female journalist clenched her teeth, clearly not buying any of JECA Group's nonsense. Su Jie raised an eyebrow, teasing, "Our super soldiers are selected from athletes. As everyone knows, athletes have excellent physical development. As for inspections, our group has many business secrets, which makes it inconvenient for outsiders to enter. Of course, if you really want to come, JECA Group will not refuse. It's just that at the JECA Group's location, there are many poison insects and the floors are slippery, which makes it easy to fall. In case of any accident, the local hospitals lack medicines, which might lead to life-threatening situations if treatment is unavailable. Arrogant. This is what you call supreme arrogance. This is definitely a threat from Su Jie. Now, who would dare to come to investigate the Jekka Group, entering their territory where they can easily control you? It's likely that you'll enter standing and leave lying down. Next question. Su Jie ignored the frustrated Japanese female reporter and turned to the next journalist from Russia. Please ask when the war between Jekka Group and the Chan country government will truly end. The journalist asked a question that was outside the agenda of the press conference, but Su Jie didn't refuse to answer. Regarding that question, the decision is not ours to make. The war will stop the moment the Chan country government ceases its persecution of the people. Otherwise, my Jekka Group will definitely liberate all the people oppressed by the Chan country government. Su Jie's tone was forceful and resolutely determined. The journalists below hurriedly took notes. As a major contemporary conflict, with behind-the-scenes manipulation by the beautiful country and direct involvement by Japan, this war has attracted extreme attention, followed by several related questions. After answering some questions, Su Jie successfully concluded today's press conference. The next day, news about Jekka Group's response immediately topped the trending searches. Leading the opposition was not the beautiful country or the top 10 pharmaceutical companies, but damn India. Jekka Group's actions disregard international pharmaceutical patent laws and destroy the good order of the pharmaceutical industry, bringing endless misfortune to the global medical industry. Jekka Group must immediately stop the development of generic drugs, or our country will impose sanctions on Jekka Group. This news, once released, immediately sparked a flood of amusement and discussion online. I don't object to Jekka Group making generic drugs. After all, it's those pharmaceutical companies that break the rules first. But why does India have the right to criticize? They are the biggest producer of generic drugs in the world. Hehe. Isn't that easy to understand? Your exclusive business now has a competitor who is snatching business from you and affecting your earnings. Wouldn't you be anxious too? India. Damn it. Just sitting at home, trouble comes from the sky. Who'd have thought there'd be another shameless fellow in the world apart from me? None other than Jekka Group, a young phoenix rising. The internet was amused by India's statement, much like a vicious murderer criticizing another for robbery, saying robbery is bad and illegal and one should strive to be a good person. It sounded absurdly theatrical. Jekka Group didn't respond to the outburst from India, focusing instead on developing their generic drugs. A week later, the first batch of generic drugs hit the ground, entering the stage of mass production. These generic drugs not only supplied more than 10 million people under the control of Jekka Group, but also successfully exported overseas through Jekka Group's smuggling channels, breaking into the pharmaceutical markets of Europe and America. Faced with prices that were several tens, or even hundreds of times cheaper than patented medicines, the price war reached a level of ruthless insanity. Nearly all patients, faced with such pricing, overwhelmingly chose with their feet. This time, it was the turn of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies to be dumbfounded. They had not expected Jekka Group to be so aggressive, daring to employ such a wild card as generic drugs. Aren't they afraid of international sanctions? Well, okay, Jekka Group really isn't afraid because they are already under sanctions. One could say the counterattack from Jekka Group left the top 10 pharmaceutical companies somewhat in disarray. Though these companies allowed India to create generic drugs, it was influenced by many factors. The most important factor was that Western pharmaceutical companies used Indian citizens as human guinea pigs. Most of their patented drugs in the final stages of development were tested in India to verify the effectiveness of these medicines. Thus, Western pharmaceutical companies couldn't formulate their patented medicines without India, and that's why, despite India significantly harming their interests, both sides had remained peaceful up to now. But Jekka Group was different. To Western pharmaceutical companies, they were even more shameless than India. Not only did they drastically reduce the prices of generic drugs, but they also recklessly allowed these drugs to infiltrate the market through smuggling, unlike India, which had a tacit agreement with the major pharmaceutical companies to control the quantity of generic drugs entering the market. Facing the unscrupulous actions of Jekka Group, the top 10 pharmaceutical companies could only look for government lobbying, while intensifying the inspection and arrest of counterfeit drugs entering the country. At the same time, They increased the sentencing for those selling counterfeit drugs. Getting caught meant starting at 10 years, which deterred many smugglers of loose counterfeit drugs. With the massive influence and various actions of these giant pharmaceutical enterprises, the situation was barely stabilized. Even though they still suffered huge economic losses caused by JECA Group's counterfeit drugs, as long as there were sufficient profits, there were always those unafraid to take risks. However, fortunately, the situation was still barely under control. Meanwhile, the top 10 pharmaceutical companies realized that these measures were only treating the symptoms, not the root cause. Only by uprooting JECA Group, the source of the counterfeit drugs, could they truly solve the problem once and for all. After several discussions among themselves, the top 10 pharmaceutical companies issued a related aid agreement. They provided free medical supplies to Chan Country soldiers and Japanese soldiers on the battlefield in Chan Country, and also sponsored the Chan Country government with a huge aid of $5 billion, which was equivalent to 1/10 of Chan Country's annual GDP, hoping that the Chan Country government could act more vigorously to eliminate JECA Group early. Just as these pharmaceutical companies attempted to suppress JECA Group, another counterattack from JECA Group arrived. Monday City Prison. A disheveled man, resembling a walking corpse, was escorted out by JECA security. This man was Raphael, son of the former head of the Averson family, Jose Averson, who had come to Monday City hoping to uncover the secret of Tianyuan hair growth liquid. Him, along with his elite mercenary squad, were either killed or captured by JECA Group, and Raphael had been imprisoned ever since. Seeing the sun after many days, Raphael squinted until his eyes slightly adjusted, only to discover a man and a woman standing in front of him. "Remember me, Raphael?" Su Jie sat in a chair with a smile at the corner of his mouth, legs crossed, and playfully asked the other, "Su Jie, you damn." Upon clearly seeing Su Jie's face, Raphael's eyes turned red. Never had he, a member of the Averson family, suffered such imprisonment. Having been jailed without seeing the daylight for nearly 2 years, he now saw Su Jie, the main culprit, and wished he could tear him to pieces. Su Jie shook his head, smiling, and said, "It seems you do remember me. I'm very sorry for your prolonged prison life. Today you can be free. Letting me go. Haha. Did my father put pressure on you? You finally understand how terrifying the Averson family is. Now you want to let me go as if nothing happened. You're dreaming." Raphael displayed excitement in his eyes. He still didn't know that his father Jose had already passed away and thought that Su Jie was releasing him. "It seems you've been locked up too long. Your mind is not so clear, not even distinguishing good from bad words." Su Jie stood up from his chair and said to Han Ruyen, "My dear, I'll leave this to you." "Wait, what are you doing?" At this moment, Raphael finally realized the situation, his pupils shrinking dramatically. Just as he was about to beg for mercy, Han Ruyen had already stretched out her delicate finger and lightly tapped. The next moment, Raphael's entire body was enveloped in a glow of blood. His flesh and bones compressed directly into a drop of crystal-clear fresh blood, which landed on Han Ruyen's fingertip. Han Ruyen slightly closed her eyes, as if sensing something, and slowly spoke. "Bloodline as the lead search." 10 minutes later, Han Ruyen reopened her eyes and nodded at Su Jie. Relatives related by blood to this person total 226, including both males and females, young and old. Their locations have been identified. "Hee, my dear, you haven't been to the beautiful country for tourism, have you? Are you interested in going for a visit?" Su Jie's smile grew more radiant. Typically, when he showed such a smile, it often meant that someone was about to have bad luck. As their retaliation in corporate warfare bore fruit, Su Jie was also preparing for armed action, to once and for all solve the problem of the Averson family, who had repeatedly provoked JECA Group. Beautiful country, California, San Francisco. Having smuggled himself in through an underground tunnel from the Mexico border, Miao Luan, carrying a climbing backpack, nonchalantly walked the streets of the beautiful country. San Francisco had a population of approximately 780,000, of which about 200,000 were of Chinese descent, making it the city with the highest proportion of Chinese people in the beautiful country. Miao Luan's face blended perfectly as he walked along. He tipped his cap lower over his eyes and slowly made his way into a high-end villa district. The high-end villa districts in the beautiful country had higher taxes, more patrolling police officers, and a fast response to emergencies. But Miao Luan's seemingly aimless movements allowed him to preemptively avoid the patrolling police, entering through the blind spots of surveillance cameras. Ferry Avenue, Villa number 24. His phone vibrated briefly, indicating a GPS location from some mapping software, marking a private villa. Also sent were 7 or 8 sketched portraits, the most conspicuous being that of a chubby, greasy-faced, middle-aged man. Miao Luan had looked up information on Aster Pharmaceutical online. This man seemed to be one of the executive directors. Seeing how clear the photo was, Miao Luan couldn't help but think of the woman in red he had met in Tijuana, Mexico, who exuded a chilly aura. Even as a genetic warrior, the sense of danger she gave him felt as if she could kill him with a flick of her finger. And that woman, known as Miss Han, was the special personnel assisting him on this mission, as General Su had mentioned. She provided the location and photos. Crushing the phone in his hand, he tossed it into the back of a pickup truck that passed by. Miao Luan tightened his backpack straps and headed towards Villa number 24. His walking speed increased, his steps nearly blurring. Yet Miao Luan's upper body remained steady as he confidently took out gloves, a head cover, a mask, pulled 2 short-barreled submachine guns out and stuffed them into his jacket, and wrapped a magazine belt around his waist. Lastly, he took out an enchanted disruptor, switched it on to incapacitate the nearby wireless cameras, and carefully avoided wired ones. By the time he finished these preparations, Miao Luan had reached the vicinity of Villa number 24. This was an ultra-luxurious private villa, more like a manor than a villa, complete with a horse stable, garden, pond, lawn, and more. Upon arriving, Miao Luan's ears enlarged slightly, emitting ultrasonic waves that spread out and sent back every collision feedback into his mind. 3, 5, 8 targets, all here. Miao Luan slipped on his head cover and, pulling a fuse from his climbing pack, he threw it towards the villa's main gate. A few well-dressed bodyguards, wearing earpieces and looking robust, stationed at the entrance, momentarily stunned, then skillfully reached for the guns at their waists. But they were still a moment too slow. The TNT explosives hidden in the backpack were ignited by the fuse, and with a flash and a booming blast, fences, barriers, and body parts scattered everywhere. Amidst the flames, like an arrow shot from a crossbow, Miao Luan charged into the villa. What's happened? Where did that explosion come from? In the villa's master bedroom, Shisua Averson woke up startled and ran out in his pajamas. Shisua was the uncle of the current patriarch of the Averson family, Pedro, with a 1.6% shareholding in Aster Pharmaceutical, also serving as one of its executive directors, holding a significant weight within the family. Having recently made an enemy of the Jeka Group, Shisua had been feeling uneasy, mindful that the previous patriarch, Jose, had been killed by those lunatics. To avoid being targeted by the Jeka Group, he had spent a lot of money upgrading his security. So, at the sound of the explosion, he immediately became anxious. "Daddy, Mommy, what's happening? I was just disciplining the manservant. What's that noise ruining my mood? Honey, what's going on? Where's that explosion coming from? Son, who would dare to make trouble here? Don't they want to live?" Shisua's family also ran out, some holding whips, some with face masks, and others with phones in hand, looking furious, gathering around Shisua. "It might be an assassination by the Jeka Group." Shisua voiced his uneasy guess. No sooner had he spoken than his previously brash family turned pale, fully aware of how the previous patriarch had died. "Don't be scared. I've hired many elite bodyguards and prepared plenty of heavy weapons. The glass and buildings of the villa have been modified. He can't get up here." Shisua reassured his family and took out a remote to lock down the security system leading to their floor, as iron bars fell across the glass and doors. Combined with the dozens of elite bodyguards and powerful heavy weapons, it resembled a small fortress, providing a strong sense of security. After ensuring his own safety, Shisua couldn't resist moving to the window, quietly opening a small viewing slot, only to be startled by the sound of gunfire, like beans being fried. As he looked down, Shisua saw a sight that left him agape. He saw a man clad in a head cover and mask, reminiscent of a ruthless gangster from the movies, unleashing a slaughter. The man's 2 submachine guns were spitting bullets incessantly, snatching the lives of the bodyguards. Super soldier. Shisua instantly realized that anyone possessing such formidable combat skills was undoubtedly a super soldier, confirming that the Jekka group had indeed begun their bloody revenge on the Averson family. No, I have so many bodyguards, and without battle armor, he shouldn't be able to overpower my men. Shisua thought so, and then he saw the bodyguards who had brought the heavy weapons had not achieved any success. Several bodyguards were hiding behind a wall with a shooting window open, where a machine gun was mounted, hoping to sweep Miao Luan to his death on the spot as he approached. But as Miao Luan made his way through, it was as if he had anticipated the danger in advance. The biometric radar abilities he inherited from the Purple Light Bat made any attempt at ambush completely futile. Clang! A grenade was tossed into the recently opened firing window by Miao Luan. Grenade, get down! Several bodyguards screamed in terror. Boom! Amidst the splattering of shrapnel and the cries of agony, Miao Luan stepped forward to shoot each fallen bodyguard, lifted the heavy machine gun with his feet, and grasped it firmly in his hands, draping the ammunition belt over his shoulder. Still, this big guy feels comfortable to use. Miao Luan revealed a bloodthirsty and ruthless smile, for he had traveled light and had not carried heavy armor or a large-caliber machine gun. Recently, the beautiful country had been very strict with inspections. Even the slightest suspicion would lead to a search, and even though he could kill anyone who inspected him and flee, it would affect the progress of his mission, so he did not carry those inconvenient things. Bang! 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 The ammunition belt wildly jumped, and in front of Miao Luan, these bodyguards were as vulnerable as sheep before a tiger. Their so-called resistance was nothing more than a one-sided massacre. The heavy machine guns and sniper rifles specially placed in the villa for defense, including various traps, were always neutralized by Miao Luan's preemptive radar before they could be effective. He would blow their heads off as if he had the entire map exposed in front of him. Occasionally, stray bullets from rifles and submachine guns hit Miao Luan, but he seemed unaffected, even though he was not wearing the impressively defensive steel heavy armor. In the midst of battle, Miao Luan moved as fast as the wind, crossing distances of over 10 meters with a single stride. Many bodyguards didn't have time to react before losing sight of him, and then their heads were pierced by bullets that followed. With a heavy machine gun in hand, Miao Luan accelerated his killing. Many bodyguards were directly hit by 12.7 caliber bullets, breaking arms and legs, cutting waists in half, leaving the scene a bloody mess. Shisua, whose lips turned white with fear, watched in disbelief as his elite bodyguards were slaughtered like chickens and dogs, blood smeared everywhere. This group of bodyguards, as expected, collapsed under Miao Luan's assault, scattering in panic, but Miao Luan did not let them escape easily as bullets chased and bit at their heels. Shisua had hired 50 elite bodyguards, but now they were running for cover. Some bodyguards, in a desperate bid to survive, sought to hide under beds and in wardrobes, or simply played dead. But these little tricks couldn't fool Miao Luan with his biometric radar. His machine gun fired through wardrobes and bed boards, killing those hiding as blood trickled down from the crevices. Killing as he went, not a single person, not even a dog that had entered the villa that day would survive. After dealing with these small fries, Miao Luan's ultrasonic biological radar indicated there was no other living person left, so he stepped upstairs into the villa. Reinforced concrete and alloy doors are not thick enough. Do you think this will help? Miao Luan looked at the steel alloy door blocking his path. First sprayed the same area continuously with the heavy machine gun until the steel twisted and deformed. Then, he grabbed the deformed area with both hands, his arm veins bulging, his arms thickening, secreting the protective insect shell of his exoskeleton, and tore the steel door apart, walking in calmly. Clang, clang, clang. Several pistol bullets were fired at Miao Luan's face, passing through the mask but were deflected by the exoskeleton that had grown on his face. Shisua kept his finger on the trigger, unable to release it, not even realizing he needed to reload after firing blanks. Those few shots had drained him of all his courage. Miao Luan turned around, his eyes cold and indifferent like a nightmare, staring down at Shisua and his family, who were screaming and crying like quails. "Daddy, I'm scared. Husband, talk to me. I don't want to die, woo. I don't want to die." Shisua trembled, knelt to the ground, and shouted, "I have money. A lot of money. Is $10 million enough? $100 million. I will pay $100 million for my life. Please don't kill me. There's a head for a debt. And it was the head of the family, Pedro, who offended you. I have nothing to do with this. Don't worry. We'll be sending Pedro down to join you soon enough. Not one will escape. As for your money, keep it to spend in hell." Miao Luan's expression on his face remained unchanged, like an emotionless assassin, as he pointed the gun at Shisua. "Spare my family." Bang, bang, bang. Bullets tore through bodies, and after several quick screams, a group of people huddled in the corner, already dead from the random shooting. After the killing, Miao Luan stepped forward to check for survivors to prevent any unexpected ones from living through. Once confirming his victory, Miao Luan then looked at Shisua's deathly wide eyes and spat out contemptuously, "When your beautiful country bombed the Mande region back then, I didn't see them stop firing because they might hurt civilians." Having said that, Miao Luan turned and walked out of Villa number 24. The whole process seemed complicated, but it all happened in just 5 minutes. Only at this moment did the sound of sirens finally approach from a distance. Miao Luan, upon exiting, came face to face with the racing police cars. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Miao Luan didn't pause, pulling the trigger, as large 12.7 caliber machine gun bullets turned the police cars into a beehive of holes. 7 or 8 police cars, like rabbits chased by dogs, hurriedly turned around and retreated, leaving behind for vehicles emitting black smoke, whose drivers and passengers had been shot dead. Reinforcements, calling police headquarters for reinforcements. I am Officer C. 14 Pierre. A violent shooting occurred on Fran Avenue. The perpetrator used high-powered weapons. Send helicopters immediately and request the deployment of the National Guard. The officers who had luckily survived the heavy machine gun fire were pale, continuously shouting into the walkie-talkies for reinforcements, saying they dared not get any closer. Miao Luan did not entangle with these officers too much, to avoid drawing the tanks and armored vehicles of the National Guard. After temporarily pushing back these officers, Miao Luan, using both hands and feet, directly climbed over the wall and left. When a large number of police officers surrounded the villa, Miao Luan had already taken off his bulky coat, removed his hood and gloves, set them on fire with a lighter, and threw them into a trash can. Then, he quickly blended into the crowd of onlookers who had gathered upon hearing the commotion and ultimately disappeared. Upon entering the villa, many officers, upon seeing the horrifying scene inside, some of the newer officers with weaker stomachs vomited on the spot. The villa was strewn with dismembered limbs and spilled intestines, with blood splattered on the walls and glass as if it were a scene from a tableau of hell. This is Mr. Shisua. We must catch the perpetrator immediately. Mobilize the entire city's police force immediately." As the leading officer looked at the bodies of the Shisua family, his complexion turned dark and his eyes filled with dread, immediately recognizing them as prominent figures in San Francisco, regulars at high-end social gatherings, and major donors of money and materials to their police department, important high-level members of the Averson family. Nearby officers couldn't help but whisper among themselves, "It's madness. I heard Mr. Shisua is the son-in-law of State Senator Kevin Bradley. Who on earth is this perpetrator? To massacre an entire villa like this, slaughtering the whole family. Not just people, even the 2 pit bulls raised in the villa had their necks crushed and were trampled to death. Stop chatting. Go find the storage for the surveillance cameras immediately. There aren't any. The surveillance cameras were tampered with. From the combat traces, it seems there was only one perpetrator, and with that kind of combat ability, it's probably a super soldier, even a first-class one from Steel Camp. Suddenly, a police officer skilled in trace analysis reached a conclusion that made the legs of everyone who heard it weaken. Super soldiers, the fiercest of the fierce, ruthlessly non-human who slaughtered countless enemies on the battlefield. If their police were to confront them, it would be like delivering themselves to the slaughter. JECA Group, Super Soldier, Averson family, medical embargo. An officer who often followed the news had by now pieced together the logic, and couldn't help but inhale sharply. How audacious was JECA Group, that just because the Averson family advocated for and facilitated a medical embargo, they came to beautiful country to kill people unscrupulously, an absolute abuse of power. The Averson family must be protected immediately. We must prevent any more members from dying, or else how can beautiful country save face? The message was passed up the hierarchy, and the higher-ups immediately issued this directive. However, this message was a bit delayed because almost at the same time as the Villa massacre was taking place, many members of the Averson family were also experiencing a series of massacres, with a large number of members lying in pools of blood, destined not to receive effective protection from the officials of beautiful country.